recording thing. There we go. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Princeton Historic Preservation Commission, held electronically on Zoom on April 17th, 2023 at 4 p.m. Pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of the time and place and agenda of the meeting has been transmitted to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, the Times, the Trentonian, and filed with the clerk of Princeton, who has posted it to the municipal website, www.princetonnj.gov/meetings. Welcome, everybody. So nice to have you. Let's see, are there any announcements?
WJHD.
Don't you have to do roll call first?
Oh, yeah, we gotta do roll call, sorry. Elizabeth, do you want to do that or?
Yes, I'll do it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Leighton was calling. He's trying to get in.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Endersby,
I'm here, believe it or not.
Ms. Satterfield? Yeah. Mr. Shatskin? I know he's absent. Ms. Howard?
Here.
Mr. Pyle?
Yo,
Ms. Friedman? Ms. Lewandowski?
Here,
Mr. Shore?
here.
Ms. Capozzoli?
Here. So we have a quorum. Thank you. Elizabeth, do you have any announcements?
I do not have any announcements today,
Oh.
Madam Chair.
All right, so we'll just head right into business. We have a resolution from 302 John Street last week. So do you know if anyone is here from the 302 John Street?
There isn't anyone here for that application that I see.
Okay,
Oh,
well,
wait. Oh, excuse me. Ron Berlin is here. Hold on.
okay,
Would you like me to bring him over?
yeah, if,
Okay.
oh, there's Ron.
Hello,
Hey, Ron.
hi all.
Hi. So I just wanted to know if you had any comments before we pass this resolution.
I did, I sent it, Elizabeth, did you get the email I sent you?
I did, and I did share it with the chair.
Okay,
And we looked at it briefly before the meeting.
good. I mean, I just had this question of, I remembered when I was chair of this site plan review and advisory board, when someone made a motion to approve, there was always this explicit mention, you know, we accept the comments of the professional as stated in the report, with the exception of, sometimes there was an exception, and then there might have been other conditions added. And I just wasn't clear about that. Apparently that's implicit when someone makes, is that the case, Julie? That it's implicit that anyone who moves to approve an application?
Well, I think we go over Elizabeth's memo at the beginning. And like, I know for sure, like there was the thing we said to not do, like with the landscape where, you know, Elizabeth was saying, well, maybe certain plants would be better. And then we ended up saying, no, we're not gonna
Right,
define it that way. But then I think, yeah, we kind of went along with her memo with the exceptions that we noted. But is there a specific resolution that you think is not correct?
there only one, it's not about correctness, because I love the idea. This was about the street tree. I just didn't want to burden the owners with the responsibility of having to pursue that.
Oh.
Because it's something that it's not on their property. And if to me, the best place for that street tree was on the strip to the north and east of the house at the entrance to the parking lot. And I thought it was a great idea. I just don't want the onus to be on Evan and Annie.
Oh, I see. I mean, well, we could just cut out the first, the applicant shall consult with, and just start it with the Princeton arborist shall determine whether or not the trees should be installed. And
Yeah,
we can leave it like that. And
that'd
just
be
take
great.
it
And
out.
I'm frankly, I'm going to encourage Evan and Annie to get in touch with Taylor. So they can perhaps have a little say in, they might not want, a ginkgo tree there or something.
Right.
So,
I mean, but we can't even guarantee that, we don't really have the power to make the municipality put a tree there.
Yeah.
I mean, we can ask, whether it can happen, but we really can't make that happen either.
yeah, I
don't
understand.
think.
And actually
I-
that came up originally. It was Elizabeth's suggestion. I thought it was a good one. And it came originally from this kind of misunderstanding about the new driveway location. You're taking a tree away, so you need to add one in kind. This,
Right. And it's not on their property, so, or there's no room on the property for a tree. Right?
theoretically, there is, but we're not doing that. We're not taking away any trees.
Okay. Okay. Oh, right. Okay.
We're not
Okay.
relocating the driveway.
So, Ed, do you think it's okay if we just say on line 2, we just say the Princeton arborist shall determine whether or not trees can be installed?
Yes, that's a good change and we'll make that.
Yeah, and that, it's a minor thing, but I appreciate it.
Okay. So with that change, does anyone want to move approval of the resolution?
I'll move the approval of the resolution as revised verbally.
Thank you. Is there a second? I see Elric. Okay, second. I guess we should vote.
Would you like me to do it by roll call?
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Endersby,
Yes.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Pyle,
Yay.
Charlotte, were you here last week?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
she was, okay. Ms. Friedman,
Yes.
Ms. Lewandowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shore,
Yes.
Ms. Capizoli.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks for coming in.
Thanks once again, board.
Okay. Well,
Take care.
see you
all.
soon.
Hope
Bye.
to see you soon.
Bye. All right. Moving on, we have a concept review of 28 Edge Hill Street. And Elizabeth provided links for the elevations and the application, the description. So, and she doesn't write a report because it's a concept review, but I see Ryan Kennedy's here. So maybe you want to talk about it?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair, and rest of the board. Ryan Kennedy from Stevens and Lee. I see we've got Jackie and Jeff Fleischer, our architect. If we could bring them over, and it looks like you've got Lou over as well. So as they're reappearing, I'll thank you guys for your process with the concepts. This is an applicant, an architect that have already had some preliminary discussions with Elizabeth about this historic home on 28 Edge Hill. The design that they're pursuing has some minor modifications to the front, the addition of, we hope you think, appropriate front porch where there currently is none, but I think you'll hear in a few minutes some history they found about their, maybe not surprising history about there being one in the past, and a rear addition. You guys are familiar with Edge Hill. It is a super narrow street. You couldn't paint a shutter without it violating a side yard setback or a height to setback ratio. So everything they do on the site, even though what they're doing is compact and kind of within the existing envelope, does require variances from the zoning board. And obviously we're in the historic review district, so we're here for those purposes as well. They plan a bunch of neat things here. I think Jeff has done a really nice job of tucking kind of some usable space on the third floor with a rear facing shed dormer. It does alter the front roof line a bit, so we really want to make sure we get some feedback on that before we file. And as part of insulating a home that has never had anything approaching insulation, they're going to re-side it so they could do that from the outside as part of the project as well. If we could, I see our two homeowners, Lou and Jackie, if you want to quickly introduce yourselves and what your thoughts are for why you need to do this here on NHL.
Sure.
Ryan, can I just interrupt you for a minute? I apologize. Is Jeff Fleischer part of your group?
Yes, if
I'm
you could
sorry.
bring him
Okay.
over as well.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you. Sorry.
he's our architect.
Lou, you want to start?
Go ahead, you can start.
Good afternoon. Thank you for hearing us so quickly. We're very pleased to get in front of you. And we're very excited about this. We're downsizing. We're from Montgomery, so we're local. And we've been looking for a little bit to come into Princeton, and we were very excited when we found this home. You're probably familiar with Edge Hill. We were very enamored, actually, when we looked into the home at the listing, and inside the home was a book, and you may be familiar with the book as well. Apparently, a former resident some years ago did a whole history of Edge Hill Street, the homes on Edge Hill and the people that lived there. So it was left by the prior homeowner's estate for the next buyer, and we were lucky enough to be that next buyer. We hope. We've actually started demolition, so we have a lot of work to go forward on. But in any event, the home they think was apparently built in around 1835 on Mercer Street, but moved from Mercer Street in the late 1800s, 1890s, and may have been joined to another home that already existed at 28 Edge Hill. The home, and Jeff can probably explain this better, has different elevations front to back. So they think it was actually two houses. They know that the original house had a full front porch across the front. A side porch was added at some point, probably again around the 1900s, the early 1900s, and it was enclosed around 1940. And a second story was added there as well. So that's a little bit of the history that we know of. I don't have the book in front of me. That's what I can recall for you, but we were very enamored to know all of that. And we're excited to learn more about Edge Hill Street as well. It's a fascinating.
Jerry Breese's book.
I don't recall the name. I apologize. I don't have it in front of me. It might be, it's
I
got
had it
full
here, but I
pictures. It
don't.
goes house by house and a full history of everything they could learn about the residents of each house and how it came to be. We're right next to the barracks, with the house known as the barracks.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jackie. Lou, anything you want to add before we hand over to Jeff?
First of all, hello and thank you, as Jackie indicated. She hit it pretty well, but I'm sort of a history nerd, I would say. So learning that Hamilton and Madison stayed in the house next to us while the revolutionary conflict was going on is pretty exciting to me. We're really interested in preserving the house, kind of make it look, not kind of, but make it look as it was, but make it brand new so that it'll last hopefully another 200 years or more. So we appreciate all of your input and we're happy to accept any suggestions that you all have. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right, Jeff, you
So
want
did,
to? Yeah, we
did-
have our plans. If you want to, have us show them now, we'd be happy to walk you through the.
that would be
elevations.
wonderful. Thank you.
I can share my screen. Let's see.
Thank you.
Oops. So you're currently looking at the existing conditions at 28 Edge Hill. It's a federal style house. Like they mentioned, it was moved to the site late 1800s. I do believe it was two separate houses. You can tell by inside that the rear addition is at a lower level than the front. And you can see how long the house became once they put on that back addition. We're proposing to, let me show you, to raise the roof in the front approximately 2 feet to allow for a functional attic space. It currently has a walk-up attic, but the ceiling height's only about 6'6". So we're going to add 2 feet to that, as well as add a shed dormer at the rear of the house to provide headroom for the attic level. And then we're just reconfiguring the interior and also adding on the back. Just zoom in a little. So we're coming out 10 feet out the back to increase the size of the kitchen, the rear of the house, and then provide a new rear entrance with a small mudroom. And let me move back out. We're also proposing to cover the front porch with just a small portico that would be built on top of the existing brick stairs. And that would be in keeping with the trim of the house, but just reducing the scale of it. So we won't be doing the egg and dart that's along the top fascia, but we will copy the same trim as well as bring out the fluted columns. There are pilasters on either side of the existing front door that will remain, and we'll mimic those in the new. Sorry, I'm zooming in and out. We'll copy that same style of column. We're going to maintain the shutters. The windows will be replaced. We're proposing to use the Marvin Magnum series wood windows. The shutters are in disrepair, but will be replaced in kind. And so that's the front elevation. There is currently a window at the second floor on this side, later side addition. We're proposing to remove that window because there's going to be a closet there now. But on the, oops, sorry. On the north elevation, which is the driveway side, I'm sorry, the south elevation on the driveway side. Currently, this window that's shaded is covered with shutters, and on the interior, it was a closet. We're proposing to put the window back to restore the front part of the house to its original character. Again, shutters will be replaced in kind. And then the difference in the windows on the south elevation, we're proposing to group these two windows that would be in the new dining room. These two windows on the second floor would remain. We're going to remove one window, which would now be in a closet. And then we're adding this two series of triple bay windows toward the back of the house. And this shaded area indicates the addition, the 10-foot addition off the back of the house.
Thank you.
I
All
guess
right. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's right. I just wanted to show you the rear elevation. And then in the rear elevation, we're maintaining some existing roof pitches, and then this new addition will align with those existing roof lines. That's all.
All right, I want to open it up. Again, this is a concept review. We love concept reviews. They're a great way for us to have a conversation. Just wondering if anyone had any questions or comments.
Yes,
Go ahead, Christine.
okay. I was wondering a few things. You said, is there any reason to put the portico in the front? Was it ever there before?
Yes, originally there was a porch in the front of the house that was removed in the 1940s.
Okay, so so on the front, it's really like a portico over a stoop. It's not
Yes,
much of a porch. And you said that there are pilasters that are on the surface of the house now, and you're
Yeah.
proposing to remove those.
no, I'm not. I'm proposing to
Keep them. Oh, okay.
keep
I thought you said remove. That's why I was concerned.
Yeah.
And in
Just, excuse me, just to review real quick, the book that I'd mentioned, and I think I might have highlighted it, they believe that the original house had a porch going all the way across the front.
That wouldn't be characteristic of this period.
I'm just telling you what they historically found, evidence of. Or
Yeah, and in the book, it makes mention of the fact it was removed during a renovation in the 1940s. I would agree with you that I think the smaller portico is more in keeping with the style of the house.
And I didn't finish my questions. And sorry, I meant to look at this today and I forgot. Is any of the back seen from the street?
It is not, no.
It isn't. All right, because I was going to have some questions there. If there was any reason for the back portico or the back stoop, but if it's not to be seen, then I don't have a question on it. And
Yeah,
I'm just-
it wouldn't be visible from the right of way.
right, I just wondering, actually, I'm going to ask Elric. Elric, what do you think about that 2 feet rise of the roof?
I don't like it. I think the proportions are wrong. And unfortunately, I think it's awkward. The dormer is set back a bit, which helps, but the height is just
And I was
the
looking-
space above the second story windows and below the cornice is broader than I'm used to, I'll say. And the thing about it might not make such a great difference if this house was standing alone. In fact, it's in company with a number of other houses in that area, which were built at the same time. That's why I like the portico, for instance,
Mhm.
because there's the opportunity to reflect the porticos which embellish a number of those houses. I'm very much in favor of having shutters on the first floor and blinds on the second floor.
Mhm.
I questioned the ganged windows on the sidewall. Initially, I thought, well, they're already there, and I would question the single shutters on either side. I'd rather not see shutters at all than see them where they're not functional, but they're just treated as a decorative motif. But I would far prefer to see windows directly below the second story. I thought it was mentioned that the house stepped down in the back, and I guess I thought that was the floor level.
It
But I
is the
guess-
floor level, yes, and that's the reason why these dining room windows are lower than the windows on the front portion,
Right.
because the
So
ceiling is actually
what happened, the one I'm looking at is that the sill plate appears to run directly above the cellar windows from front to back, and it doesn't reflect that lower floor level.
Well, I'm sorry, the first floor is at the same level. It's the second floor that drops down.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
understandable. And frankly, because there's no kitchen as part of the original front section of the house, there certainly would have been a kitchen attached to the house, and it would have been lower, and the second floor would have been lower. So that doesn't surprise me. Be interested if your investigations include the party wall between those two sections and any evidence you might find there. Could I see a close-up of the portico?
Sure.
Now, this looks like a CAD drawing of I mean, they're not fluted columns. They're detailed as Victorian columns, and I certainly question that. And I just find I think taking a Sunday afternoon walk around the neighborhood, you would find that the articulation of this is different on most of the other examples. The fact that the plinths, I guess, or am I looking, maybe I'm just looking at the bottoms of the newel posts there.
Yes, these are the.
Okay, good.
The
Wait.
shaded area is new. These are the existing fluted columns and the existing door with, I believe, to be the original transom.
And the capitals, are there capitals on the house as it
No.
stands?
No.
Again, I'm curious about that, but we see a lot of proposals that come in here when we wince at seeing that a fine old house is being changed beyond recognition. I think you've made an honest effort to try and maintain the facade in particular. I let the house talk. Let the house tell you what to do.
Right.
And I always quite like, I'm looking at the first story windows. Are they longer than the ones on the second story?
Only slightly.
Because the panes are obviously, the CAD doesn't know the difference, and it's
Yeah,
coming up
no,
with
you're
ridiculous panes there.
Yeah, they should be equal. Yeah.
It's possible that they were meant to be 9/6, but that hard to say.
Yeah.
There were specific pane sizes which are appropriate, and the house usually tells you that. We'll be interested in any discoveries you make.
I'd like to finish what I was gonna ask. You're raising the roof, and so I see you'll have a violation, and part of the house already is in violation of the setback to height ratio, well, height to setback ratio. And I'm just wondering, are there other variances in terms of side yard or FAR?
No FAR, and any new addition will comply with the side yard setbacks.
And do you, what was I gonna ask? What's the size of the lot?
51 by 200,
Okay,
might be 202, but it's,
so it's close
Round.
to a quarter of an acre.
Yes, it is.
Um,
51 across.
okay,
All right, are there other questions, comments?
Madam Chair, if not, there was one thing I wanted maybe Jeff to try to elicit out. I know there are the sizing or the reveal of the clapboards around the building is quite unique and varied, and you're hoping to get some feedback perhaps about the board's preference, because it's going to be insulated and resided if the one should be chosen over the other, whether we should try to match the existing reveals, be they oddly different around the house.
Oh, great point. And maybe we can talk about what's existing and then what you have an idea for proposing.
So the existing siding, the exposure varies, but it's all wood siding currently. We're proposing to put in a cement composite siding, has the same profile, just a modern material that will hold up with the weather and paint and all.
Is the depth of the walls gonna change with the addition of that insulation?
The depth of the walls, no. They have done some interior demo and the walls are filled with brick, so that brick will be removed. There is no sheathing on the house. So when we remove the siding, that'll give us the opportunity to put sheathing on. So it may increase the depth by the 1/2 inch sheathing.
I know with this house, my notion was to do exactly that. And then it wasn't until I lived in the house, I realized that the plaster on the outside walls was applied directly to the brick nogging. Do you know that there's lath on the studding for those walls?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm a little curious about the egg and dart on the front of the house. Is that correct that the clapboard actually goes up at least partially for the depth of the cornice? Or again, is that CAD scratching its head and finding nothing there?
Yeah, if you look at, I do have some photos here. Might be able to shed some light on that. I don't know if you can see that okay, but there's the egg and dart.
Where our portraits run along instead. It looks like it's a blank board behind it.
Yes, there's a fascia board behind it, and then the siding dies to the underside of the fascia board.
And you do intend to have a chimney, even if it didn't show on the plan, on the elevation?
No, there is no chimney. The fireplace, I don't know when, but it was rendered, it was taken down below the roof line. And they're inoperable.
And the roof, is it slate?
No, it's asphalt.
Okay,
And that's what we're proposing to replace, a 3-tab asphalt shingle.
so clearly work was done on the house maybe in the last 30 years or something, or?
Well, there was a large renovation in the 40s. And
Oh.
I don't know that they did anything since then.
Doesn't seem that way.
Yeah.
The prior owner grew up there. Apparently her family bought it in the 40s and they must have done the renovations. And then it sounds to me as though she and her husband lived there after as well. That this house was in her family for those 80 years. So,
Wow. And the clapboard, what do you, can you save any of it or?
Well, it has a lot of paint on it. And it varies in exposure. So I don't see how we could save it because it all has to be pulled off so that we can sheathe the outside of the house
Mhm.
and make it weather tight.
And so you're thinking about like a hardy plank?
Yes, something similar.
Mhm. And then are you thinking about different reveals for different parts of the house?
I think well, obviously we're going to keep the egg and dart, and any corner trim we're going to copy. Any replacement trim will match what's there currently.
And the exposure in various locations?
Yeah, so we would hope to make it, I think it's like 7 1/8 of an inch exposure, and we'd want to maintain that around the entire house.
I guess I'm curious to know whether the different exposure is just because there- various areas were repaired, replaced at various times, or if they reflect, the additions which were made along its long history.
Yeah, I believe it's the sunroom addition on the side here. That has a
Uh-huh.
different exposure.
Okay.
I have a question. Is the siding going to be wood?
No.
No?
It'll be a composite material, cement composite.
Like a hardy plank.
Yeah.
Let's see, how about, do other members have more feedback on the whole attic issue and, raising the roof? Are there other opinions on that? I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and the roof currently has a very low 5-on-12 slope. So we're proposing to go to 8-on-12. And these attic windows, not actually moving those. They're gonna stay in their current location. And the peak is just gonna come up about 2 feet higher than it is now.
If you go to that, that drawing,
Sorry, I don't know if somebody's getting a lot of interference. I'm wondering, David, could you mute for a second? I just want to see. Maybe that was it.
yeah.
Mhm.
Can we take another look at the attic drawing?
Sure. So this is the straight on view. You won't actually see the roof as tall as this when you're at grade level.
I'm just wondering if there are any similar houses nearby and the height will look out of place.
Well, I
One
don't-
side is the barracks, which is
No,
very,
that
very
barracks
different
is
frame,
completely
yeah.
different
Yes.
era.
And then I'm hesitant to use a word to describe the house next door because it architecturally be completely incorrect, but is a very different style with different
Yeah.
types of roof. Jeff, perhaps you can save me from embarrassing myself with it, not knowing the type. But as more of a
Well,
Victorian shape, but that is
Yeah.
completely wrong, I know.
Yeah, still the height of this building will be around 32 feet. And I believe the neighbor on the left-hand side, it has a similar style to this house. And I believe that one is taller. I should probably take some photographs of the neighboring houses just so you can see, but
Maybe it'd help. I could throw up a street view because it's a different with the front gable and a more
Yeah.
modern kind of shingling.
Jeff, do you have a drawing of the existing east elevation
yes.
that,
So this is the east elevation. Existing.
so there's the increase, that 2 feet is not, it's happening in the roof, right?
In the roof here, yes. It's just coming up.
Okay, from the top of the windows to the bottom of the eave or to the egg and dart is the same dimension.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was wrong on that. I apologize. It wasn't until I saw the photographs that I realized that already exists. I thought I misinterpreted when you said you were raising it.
Oh, you thought I was raising this piece? No, this is.
Yeah, I thought you were raising the cornice. And
No.
I also, I looked at it before and I thought, boy, that's a flat roof on this elevation. It's 2 feet. What's the depth of that front section?
This section
1
here,
feet? 18 feet, maybe?
Are you talking about just the flat section from here to here?
I don't see your marker, but
Oh,
it-
sorry.
just the elevated, so the taller section,
It-
the parlor.
You want to know the height from the cornice down to grade?
No, I just wanted to know if you're raising it 2 feet, the proportion, seemingly would be too steep, but in looking at your drawings, I don't have enough of an objection to make it.
Okay. This might help. So if you look at this north elevation, this shaded area is the area that's being raised.
Yeah. I can live with that.
But right, so it's just that your roof angle is
Is changing. Yeah.
deeper, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you're gaining that 2 feet, yeah.
Yeah.
I-
this-
I
This-
I would
So
leave
that-
the option open of actually raising the windows on the other side, because they are positioned in a way that is complementary to the roof. Now, are you sure that the roof comes right down to where the windows are, or have you raised them slightly already?
No, I'm pretty sure I left those where they were. Let me just check the existing.
I just keep that option open.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I left the windows where they were. Currently, the rake board hits the top corner of the windows. So it's trying to avoid that in the new roof and
Mhm.
make a little bit of space.
You're
between-
sure you don't want to have rebuild the chimney and have a working fireplace down below?
That would be up to the client.
I know they're party to this conversation.
Yeah.
I think it might be helpful in the future when you come to the commission, and I presume the zoning board, to have the existing and proposed next to one another, so we could see the difference in the height more clearly. And
Mhm.
also that would be helpful to not only the boards, but also to the public, because you're gonna have to notice everyone within 200 feet.
Right.
So,
Certainly do that.
this way you don't have to switch back and forth and back and forth. If they're next to one another, you can actually then say, oh, yeah, it's just a minor change.
No, that's helpful. And I think it's also particularly because the street is so narrow and the lots are so small, even from across the street, I think when I looked at it, you almost struggle to see. I can see those of you who thought it was a flat roof. It really is the cornice, or that Yankee gutter kind of hides even the slope there now. It might not even be visible at all.
You're correct. When you're standing on the street, you can't see the roof. Yeah.
Right, so my sense is that there really haven't been any objections to the concept that I can tell. So does anyone have any other comments or suggestions? And maybe we can go back to the regular shared, the Hollywood Squares screen. The
like
Brady
to ask
Bunch
if-
or whatever it is.
I
Yeah,
have a
Tom?
very minor question, really just a visual one. On the front facing of the house, the shutters on the second floor look a little bit different than the shutters on the first floor in terms of their modeling. Is that intended?
It's the convention.
It's
You
a
have
convention.
the-
Okay,
Earlier houses would only have shutters on the first floor, and they were shutters. They would shut out, they were for privacy and insulation. In the
indeed.
Victorian period, even before that, they introduced louvered shutters, but the Victorians had adjustable louvered shutters. And they're really not shutters, they're blinds.
Indeed. Love learning everything in this wonderful session. It's good
I
explanation.
learned
Thank you.
that too as I was.
And we just learned that.
And
I do
Elizabeth,
think, oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead, Charlotte.
No, I do think Elric's point about the non-operable, just shutters around the gang windows is a good one.
Isn't that the way they are presently?
Well, the windows aren't there. They aren't gang now.
Windows.
That's correct. They're currently aligned with the windows above. Because we had to reduce the size of the dining room.
Right.
That's why the windows became a gang pair of windows. So it was a function of the interior space.
I see. Elizabeth, you've had your hand up. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Thank you. I believe that Christine had mentioned that it's a good idea to see the streetscape, and I believe that Ryan said that they'd come back with that, and I think that that's important to see how prospectively it works within the streetscape, to see how appropriate it is. If there are other structures close to it that would not make it look awkward to be 2 feet higher. I think that that's really important. The other thing is that they talked about removing a window on the second floor that would now be a closet. What I might suggest to them is perhaps, does that window have a shutter on it? And I don't remember if you were placing shutters on that side elevation or not. And the reason I say this, because I know that there have been, like on the Present Day Club, when they needed to actually not have the window there, they actually close an existing shutter to retain the fenestration and still have it function behind it the way they need it.
I
And
like that.
That's nice.
oftentimes they would just put a wall there, but the shutter would just cover it up, but the fenestration would still represent itself on the building.
Well, it's right on this house. We said on the front, you're putting the window back, right? And
That's
taking the
correct.
closet out.
Yes.
So why not let the house dictate and just reverse the locations for the blank, the shutters, closed shutters.
So Elric, on that ganged window, that's new, right? And it's a new window.
It is.
So is there an appropriate shutter treatment for something like that? Or do you just take them off altogether? And
They're double width. They're wide enough that if they were workable shutters, they would cover the window entirely on each side.
so you make them double width on, okay. I feel like I've never seen that, but
Had them here.
did you? Okay.
It's often the case when you have a window that's right next to a door on an early house, you can't have a shutter on each side. So you throw it all to the side away from the door.
Right. Neat. Okay.
All right. Well, are there other comments or suggestions? I mean, this is a beautiful house. It's a wonderful neighborhood. And, we really appreciate projects like this because it's a lot easier than some of the other challenges we have, downtown and stuff. So we appreciate it. Yeah, Tom?
I have a quick question. Is there truth to the rumor that Edge Hill Street is the oldest street in Princeton?
It's a driveway. It led back to the barracks when the barracks was a Stockton house.
Indeed. Okay. There's a
I mean, Mercer Street, Mercer Road was laid out long after,
Right.
on part of that farm.
Mhm. Good. Thank you.
So it wouldn't have connected
and
to anything but the barn maybe.
Right,
And
from-
actually,
well,
Buzz Kyler used to say that that the house extended into what is now Edge Hill Street. I've never seen any reason to believe that that's true, but he was convinced that it was true, and he lived in the house for most of his life.
Thank
And
you.
one final thing, the family that owned the house for 80 years, have they been willing to share any photographs they have of the house?
Good point.
We were not in touch with the family. It was sold by our estate. I don't believe that the couple had children of their own that we were aware of, the estate. I think the woman who passed Had a niece who was an executor, but other than that, I don't think there was any family that we were aware of, at least what we could find from her obituary or other records.
When I bought my house, months later, somebody dropped off photographs because the woman had died, my predecessor, and there was a house sale here. And this person picked up a bunch of things, including an envelope full of photographs, and brought them back. So
The
I might
only,
get
the only
lucky.
photographs they had in the house that we were aware of were some of the garden. And apparently the woman who lived there was a horticulturist who maintained a beautiful English garden of roses and such, and entertained in the back. Her obituary said that she had it archived in the Smithsonian under the name Gray Shutters.
Oh.
That was a piece of information that was in her obituary, but
No, Juliana Kyler McIntyre, 2 doors down, 34.
mhm.
She's lived on that street her whole life.
Ah,
And growing up in the barracks, she would have known that house well.
sure,
Ask her.
okay. Hopefully we'll meet soon.
One more
David,
time.
do you have
What time?
sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
I think that this was the house that Ernie Dale was married into.
Yes, that's correct.
And I would imagine there's something at the Historical Society. Did anyone check there? I mean, he was such a big member of the society that I would wonder if his papers or any
Well,
documents are there.
His wife was a Dickinson, right?
Yes, her name, she was,
Right, yeah.
I
And
think they called her Polly. It was
Polly,
right.
Ann Dickerson Dale, and yes. Mhm.
When
And,
was the house built again?
They said around 1835, they believe.
1835,
The
The
seminary
original
built a
front of
bunch
the
of
house,
houses
the
and
oldest
moved
part.
the oldest
The,
part. And was it suggested that Madison and Hamilton stayed in the house?
No,
they
no,
stayed in the barracks.
In the,
Next
okay.
Next door.
next
Yeah, I
door.
believe that it said that the house was built by Michael Hendrickson, a local carpenter builder.
He built the house at the corner of Bank Street with Stedman. They were co-partners in building that house.
Okay.
So interesting, but Madison and Hamilton, I don't think so. The Hessians lived at the barracks at one point.
But yeah, our understanding is from what we've seen is that during the period that Princeton became the capital of the colonies, Madison and Hamilton were barracked in the old building next door. Our
Well,
house obviously
Actually,
wasn't
the Princeton magazine had an
there. Yeah,
article just a
in-
month or so ago about it. And they actually referenced it as well. And they said that during that period of time that Lou just mentioned, they were housed, there were no inns basically in Princeton. And when they
that's
came, when they came to Princeton to meet, they were housed in local homes. And the barracks was one of those homes in which they were housed at that time.
But it wasn't during the Revolution. That
No, it
was
was after.
Continental Congress.
Yes, that's
Not
correct.
1983.
Yes.
And I don't remember that house being it was a pretty humble house at that point. But there was a ghost. The
Oh.
ghost was exorcised in the 1940s. And Juliana Kyler actually met the ghost in the back room. So it's maybe
my.
still there, and the ghost would know.
Hope it was a friendly ghost.
Oh, German.
A German. Okay.
That's an oxymoron, a friendly German ghost, isn't it?
All right.
can we go
We
back
wish
to-
you well.
Thank you. We
Thank you.
appreciate all your thoughts and comments.
And we really look forward to making it something that not only we'll be happy with, but the entire neighborhood and you all will be happy with. We want it to be something that you'll be proud of.
We like its look. We don't want it to change very much.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you
All
later.
right.
Take
Have a
care.
great night.
Take care. All right. So we have our application for 29 Lytle Street. Elizabeth, yeah,
So Madam Chair, during our concept review, I received an email at 4:26 from the representative of the solar company stating that she was leaving the Zoom meeting because she was missing a couple of documents that she thought that she had, but she had a different projects documents. So she is asking for our understanding. And I guess
okay.
the next month. I am a little concerned because I think that this is the third month that they pushed it off. So hopefully,
Yeah, maybe May is our lucky month. Wow. Let's see. So do we need Ed's help with the other stuff, or can we let him go free?
well, I don't know. Would you like him to stay for the Paul Robeson house?
It's up to you, Ed.
I'll be happy to stay if you'd like me to. Let me ask on the other, missing solar people. This is one where you have exclusive jurisdiction. So we're going to have to eventually have a hearing. Have we just continued them, Elizabeth, for each month?
Yes, I've said yes, it's confirmation. And usually they tell me at least before the meeting starts. So this is a little bit unusual. But as everyone knows from the report, it is a solar panel application that they already had installed. And the property owner actually had reached out to me, and she had told me that they actually installed it February of 2022. So it's been there for a while. And what happened is they actually came in for a zoning permit. And at that time, when they received a refusal from the zoning officer, and he told them you have to apply for HPC prior to getting your zoning permit. That's when they applied, but by that time they had already installed it. So, just FYI.
We'll just continue this to the May meeting. That's fine.
Okay, well, if you want to, is anyone here from the Paul Robeson
Yes, Kevin
House
Bell.
Museum?
He's been promoted over, so he'll be here.
Oh, great. Okay.
And just to kind of give a quick background, so, it was brought to my attention that the foundation of the Paul Robeson house that faces onto Witherspoon Street, they questioned it. So I went back, because I actually didn't recall, it's been so long. When I went back and looked at the plans, the foundation was supposed to remain as is. However, it's been, I don't know why Kevin's not coming over. I'm gonna try to promote him again. But it's been removed, and I believe there was cinder block put in its place, and then a brick facade placed in front of it. I did talk to Kevin, and he's here to talk about it. He said that it was crumbling in the front, so he wanted to replace it. I think that we want to look at this because, I think everyone knows that there is no brick foundation found in this area, even for decorative reasons, and maybe a happy resolution would be to parge it instead, but I'm going to let Kevin talk about it, and then the commission to address how they feel it's appropriate. Thank you.
All right. Hi, Kevin. Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
So do you want to just let our newer members know about the Paul Robeson house? I don't know. I think everybody might know, but just for background.
Sure. Actually, I have a little presentation for you. So if you'd be willing to share the screen, I can show you images of what we've been doing.
I think you have permission when you join as a panelist.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I misunderstood that cue. So let's just see here. All right. Let me know if that works for you.
Looks good.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm Kevin Wilkes. I'm been architect and builder for the Paul Robeson House, as well as a couple other projects in the community over the past 40 years. We started the Paul Robeson House. If I can get my screen to work. Oops. Here's where we started. Can you see the images of Green and Witherspoon from May of 2008 on your screen?
Yeah. Mhm.
2008, my
So
goodness.
there's the house. Paul Robeson was born in this house on April 9th, 1898. His father was the minister of the Witherspoon Street Presbyterian Church from the 1870s to right about the turn of the century. This building, this house, was the church man's, owned by the church, and the pastor of the church and his family lived in this house. So on the left, you see the view of down Green Street. On the right, you see a little more view from the angle on Witherspoon Street with the Arts Council across the street and 112 Witherspoon. Does my cursor show up on your screens?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
The house to the, thank you. The house to the right is also owned by the church, and that's 112 Witherspoon Street. So when I came before the committee 5 years ago, in the drawing on the left here was the elevation we presented. And I want to show you in the course of construction 4 items that I'd like to modify based on evidence we've found as we've uncovered the building. I want to talk to you about the cornice. I want to talk to you about the names of the streets. I want to talk to you about the historical marker, and I want to talk to you about the brick. So here we are starting work on the building. The town removed the pin oaks on the street. They were dying. We've removed the aluminum siding. And you see on the right-hand photograph, the building actually had 3 skins in its history. The original skin here exposed on the lower portion was 4-inch clapboard beveled siding. The skin applied over that was a hard coat wire lath stucco. And the skin applied over that was aluminum siding circa late 60s, early 70s. And all of the trim in the building was wrapped in aluminum siding. So as we started to peel the building, we found a lot of interesting things. The first thing I want to bring up is we got approval in the original design to put this plaque on the building. We want to add a second plaque to the facade. And that's in part of the Witherspoon Jackson Historic District series of historic plaques, place markers that have been installed around the neighborhood. There is one for this house, and we want to put it right next to this plaque, which the Robeson Committee had made back in 2011. As we started pulling off the aluminum siding, we saw shadows of ghosts, friendly ones from the past, which is all the ornament and trim of the building. I believe the building underwent a sort of late 1800s Italianate refashioning when the gable roof was added and cornices and brackets were added. I think they were stripped off whenever the aluminum siding was done to make the installation of the aluminum siding easy. Couldn't really wrap a bracket in aluminum. So all of it was destroyed at some point in the middle of the 20th century. But I was pretty able to find the shadows of how the bracket nestled in the soffit, the shape and profiles of the moldings, the bed moldings and cove moldings that surrounded the bracket, and could certainly find its size and imprints on the building in its ghostly, non-painted, shadowed state. We're able to find hidden places in this house probably has 6 or 7 additions in its history. And luckily, back in the day when people built additions, they didn't tear things out and throw them in a dumpster. They just pretty much covered them up and kept going. So as we peeled things back, we were able to determine what these pieces were. but if we never found a bracket, the brackets are long gone. So I had to speculate a little bit what the brackets were. We were able to identify paint on the building. Annabelle Radcliffe Trenner of Historic Building Architects is helping me with paint analysis. That buff color down there is actually the original paint color on the building. There was a dark green. The paint blue was added. I can't tell you when. It's what's visible now. It's the third layer of paint. And this quite amazing engraving painted leather panel was around each gutter. Each leader that came through the built-in gutters, some people call them Yankee gutters, the hidden gutters on the roof. As each leader came through this underside of the cornice, this panel, this hand-painted leather panel surrounded them, and I found them all.
Wow.
Yes, exactly. So I looked around the neighborhood for some inspiration. There's still a lot of homes that have brackets. These are some different brackets in the neighborhood. And I conjectured and manufactured on my CNC machine brackets to fit the shadow lines and the trim lines of the building. And I recreated and rebuilt all the soffits and rebuilt the rotted gutters and put all the brackets back in the building. And here you can see we followed each location at each size and put them back. We've had to rebuild all of the gutters. Everything was completely rotted. Much of this building is rotted, actually. Building was probably built in the 1840s. The original building is that piece there. It has inside it a barn frame, 3 bents of a barn frame that create structure parallel to Witherspoon. One's on the front, one runs down the center of the building, and one's in the back. Everything in the rear yard are additions of later times. And then this piece was added on. It was originally a porch, a 1-story porch. And then the second floor was expanded over it. And then this large roof was added, and that's probably when I think these cornices were installed. So this represents something different than what we presented 5 years ago, but it was driven by really what I found underneath the aluminum. Also underneath the aluminum are old street signs. Green Street facing Green, Witherspoon facing Witherspoon, obviously. I saved them. I want to reinstall them on the building. So that's another change from our submission. And then the last issue to which Elizabeth alluded is the foundation. It wasn't entirely visible, the foundation to us. In fact, it was entirely covered. The old brick steps came up here. This was all covered with dirt, which of course caused the entire sill plate in this building to rot. So as we dug this out, we became a little concerned about what is carrying this building. And here's some pictures of the sills around the building as we exposed them. And we had to replace every piece of sill in the entire building. Some areas we were able to do foundation rebuild of the top, say 2 feet on top of foundation below that was stable. But in some areas we weren't. This is the foundation facing Witherspoon Street. I've taken out the rotted sill. And here we dug a hole next to this wall, and I'm sure you will not be shocked to learn there are no footings. The stone foundation was set entirely on dirt. As we exposed all of this, candidly, if the dirt had stayed there, everything would have probably stayed in place. But as you expose things to air, it starts to deteriorate very quickly. Here's a picture of that same wall on the inside. All of the mortar has leached out over the years. There was all the remaining sand and dust. People had tried little repairs, higgledy-piggledy over time. They'd blocked in a window there. They'd blocked in a window there. You can see the different stonework from different building campaigns. So here we are starting actually to rebuild the entire structure of the underside of the house. it's kind of like changing your shoes while you're standing up. We had to keep the building positioned in place, shore everything, and rebuild the entire support structure, except I was able to save 2 foundation walls, the north and the south. This one, frankly, they don't carry quite as much load as the east and the west, and they're 18 inches thick. I can repoint them, and they'll do just fine with this new support structure everywhere else carrying the major load of the building. So here you see a shoring wall carrying the front load of the building, and I'm starting to rebuild the foundation wall that's right there. So this is in the same plane. Removed all of that. We dug down 3 feet, put new footings underneath all of this in order to start building this block wall. That's a tarp hanging on the Witherspoon Street side, keeping the rain out while we're working. This is all the material we use on the underside of the building to hold it up. So here is the new foundation wall, replacing the old foundation wall with new footings that never existed. And what's happening along here, and the reason that this is exposed, and we took away all of this yard, is this is the entrance to the gallery that will tell the story of the Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood and the history of the Robeson family, which is located, I rather like to call it the ground floor of the building. It is in fact the basement, but it must have an at-grade accessible entrance. So it's going to have sidewalk off your beautiful new Witherspoon Jackson sidewalks that you're putting up and down Witherspoon Street. Thank you very much. And the ramp will come down along here and enter into the gallery, which will actually act as its own program space in the building. The gallery will be open independently times on weekends for visitors to Princeton to come in. It'll have rotating exhibits that will tell either the history of the family, the history of the building, the history of the Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood. Stories that Shirley tells us will get installed in a rotating system in here. And we're putting back on the front of the building a porch, which we conjectured existed. And sure enough, I found it. When I peeled off the layers of the building, I found all the outlines of the original porch. We submitted to you that the porch would have brick piers. Elizabeth is right. I did not say that this wall would have brick on the inside because we never planned to rebuild it. It became an exigent need due to its poor condition. So here's what it looks like today. This is the brick. You have brick piers on the front. There'll be benches to the street side, brick steps coming up the front of the building, and there'll be a concrete ramp, accessible ramp coming down this space and then turning into the gallery, the street level. Here's a picture of the porch slab. So the brick wall is used to hold up the porch floor. The block wall, the new block wall sitting behind, is holding up the house structure. And the brick wall and the brick piers are entirely carrying the floor of the porch, which will continue up from here, 1 story. So thank you very much. We've been doing very well. We've had a lot of success in the intervening 5 years. So we received a $500,000 grant from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation to advance the project, and it really put some wind in our sails. We were suffering from lack of funding, and now we have enough money to get 3/4 of the way home. And ABC Eyewitness News has been covering our story through Sandy Kenyon, their arts editor, and they've been doing features on our progress. And we're pretty excited to be where we are. So I would ask you to consider these changes from the original submission.
All right, thank you. That was excellent. All right, so can we go back to the view of the everybody? That's great.
There. So here's the porch. Here are the piers. I'll say honestly, Elizabeth, we say there's stucco under the bench, and we say there's stucco on the sidewall. It's completely unaddressed what the material is on the foundation wall because we weren't planning on redoing the foundation wall. I think it's a pretty important entrance into an important gallery to just cover with stucco, the cheapest of masonry materials. And I think having this brick panel here on the front, I am going to restore the stone wall on the side. Annabelle has actually analyzed the mortar in that wall. We're going to match exactly the contents of the original mortar. So we're going to repair that. The wall actually buckled a month ago and collapsed. So again, we're going to gingerly rebuild it as we go down Green Street. And I've been coordinating with Ian and Tiffany in engineering their sidewalk work with our digging along the outside of the building. But those red circles identify the location. So we want to have 2 plaques here, not 1. The Witherspoon and Green Street names up on this corner where they were. And then our cornice work.
Wow, thanks, Kevin. So maybe I could ask Elizabeth or Ed, do you guys need like more paperwork or something? I mean, or should we just discuss all the changes and leave it at that, or? How do
I
we-
would say, Julie, that you just gotten a very complete presentation. There are 4 or 5 different changes from what was approved. I think if the board this evening is comfortable with all of those and adopted a motion to approve these changes, we would pull out the old 2018 approval and we would update it. We would be done.
Okay, well, thank you. All right. So I'd love to get feedback from commission members. I guess I'll pick on Elric.
Oh, picky. That's me. I'm impressed with the detective work with the paint and the brackets and the ghosting. You know, that kind of detail is so often lost, and I appreciate the fact that you looked for it and you found it. The toll painted leather is I've never seen anything like it. It's hard to understand why they would select those locations for something which is so decorative and so far from the eye of the beholder. I've never quite understood the fenestration on the building, and now realizing it was a 3-bay structure with an addition to the south clarifies a lot of that. But it also raises the fact that that foundation wall told a tale, and in addition to your photographs, I really hope that you were able to annotate the location of the doorway that you could see underneath the doorway above. That's an odd location for it. And that opening in the middle where there would seem to be a concrete slab. What was the purpose there? And hoping that you have some documentation. And the other thing I've always wondered in trying to figure out appropriate restoration would be the time when Robeson was living there. That gang triple window on the right, in addition to being unattractive, seems more indicative of a later date. Is that something where you found that the architraves around the windows, for instance, were similar to the windows above or elsewhere?
No, you're entirely right. Andrew. You're entirely right. That window was added, I believe, in the 1960s, early 70s aluminum siding fiasco, because it had double 2x12 header over it. And no other window had a mid-20th century sawn Douglas fir header of that sort.
Why did you keep it?
Well, this was a conversation at the original meeting, and that the board felt that since it was indeterminate what its historical date was. In other words, built sometime in the 1840s, had multiple renovations, and as they used to call, who was it, Clem Levine, remodelings.
Yeah.
Um,
This was an old house.
Yeah, so that's the public. So actually, I didn't tell you anything about the programming of the space. I'm sorry, I assumed that you knew that, but of course you guys weren't there, so that was a ridiculous assumption on my part. The ground floor space that we're making a gallery is a historically significant space in the community. You know, during segregation, when African Americans were not allowed to shop uptown on Nassau Street, they needed to have within their own community their service and mercantile establishments and retail establishments in the fabric of the Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood. The typology of that was corner houses often had on the ground floor a store of some sort that was accessible off the corner from the street, not through the house. That was exactly the condition here. So this door that's sitting back there behind the street porch facade is a door into a space that was a barber shop in the community. And prior to that was a meeting room for like a gathering room for porters who worked at the university on Prospect Avenue after the hours of working at the eating clubs where they met to tell their tales. So we're opening that to the public with its own outside entrance and a recognition of that element of the typology. The main level, the first floor, which that was the living room, Elric, right there. Miss Gladys had her sewing room in this little room here, but it was in sequence, living room, dining room behind it, and kitchen behind that. We're turning the entire main level into public space, and all across the front will be a community meeting room that will seat approximately 50 people. So the main floor of the building will be devoted to the use by nonprofits of the community. There'll be 2 offices in there for nonprofits. The second floor level will retain a residential use, and it has its own private entrance on the back of the house. That's not how it was historically, Elric. It had a central staircase in the center hall going up to the bedrooms on the second level. This was the largest bedroom up here. This is the bedroom that had fireplace. This was probably Mrs. Bustill, Paul's mother's bedroom. I suspect Paul was born in this room right here. But in order to separate the use, it is actually in our code speak of mixed use building. There's a B use down here and an R use here. We have separate entry on the back side of the building, a little bit out of the public eye, because they plan to use, the church plans to use this level of housing for temporary short-term emergency need housing. Each bedroom will have its own ensuite bathroom. So there's no shared bathroom upstairs where there used to all be. And there'll be a central kitchen, but this will be for private use. And you know, Elric, I stripped everything down and found where windows were and where they weren't. And there was jiggering around over the years, but no one ever sat a compositional eye in this building to consider a composed elevation. But what
Do you
is
think that if Robeson was to reappear on that street corner, he would recognize it
it's
as
really
the house he grew up in?
really hard for me to say because I've never been able to find a photo from that era. The Italianate revival cornice roof detailing, I do believe, happens from that time.
Yeah.
Green Street was one of the wealthier streets in the Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood in terms of the merchants that lived there, the size of homes. And it's entirely possible that being the manse of the church, there was some degree of prosperity here, but that quickly evaporated in the early 2000s. In 1906, the church lost ownership of the house. Reverend William Drew Robeson was chased out on trumped up charges of not serving his congregation, when in fact, what he was really doing is advocating for his congregation to the white elites in town. and telling Woodrow Wilson that he should let his son into Princeton University, and Woodrow Wilson is recorded as saying, no, that's just not done. So he advocated for the
I
rights.
appreciate all of that, but and I understand in a way that this is true to its use as a community structure more than an architectural restoration.
Well, he only lived here for 5 years, so he was a 5-year-old. So I really doubt what his degree of recognition of his childhood birthplace would be.
Okay.
I mean, I just speculation. I can't answer that. It's amazing the stuff inside this home in its 20th century life. Miss Gladys Taylor's family owned the house. Shirley, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least 60 years. And they had a rooming house, and this place was cut up into 10 bedrooms. And as we peeled back the layers of flooring, I've reclaimed over 250 personal artifacts out of the building, as simple as socks and buttons and needles, and as interesting as the transit pass that Paul Robeson's elder brother, Bill Jr., took to go to high school in Trenton on the trolley on Witherspoon Street because he couldn't go to school in Princeton because he was Black. So there's a tremendous amount of cultural history in this building. I really, as an architect, am, a little, have to admit that this is not a textbook piece of an architecture style that I studied at school. It's just been hodgepodged for years. But when you get inside and under these four skins of this building, it tells incredible stories. And that's really what the committee is trying to tell, is the story and not necessarily an architectural discipline.
Is the porch based on ghosting?
No, the porch is based on the original committee's desire to have something plain and generic. I actually saved a historic porch in the neighborhood off of 12 Green Street and proposed reinstalling it on this building. And Robert von Zumbusch would not hear to it. He said it was not the original porch of that building. It shouldn't be put there. It's a remarkably beautiful porch. So this was kind of a compromise, Elric, to get through the original approval to do something that is kind of porch echo, but not actually anything of particular architectural style. It did have the brick steps. So the brick steps are another part of that 1970s aluminum siding phase of the building. I think the brick steps and those windows you pointed out, all of that stuff happened then. And when I tore out the brick steps, I did find a piece of what I believe to be a porch bracket, not enough to be an intact thing that I could say exactly how it was deployed. But I did find some debris in the backfill inside the porch from when the woodwork of the building was stripped.
All right, so are there other questions, comments for Kevin?
Yes.
Yeah, Christine.
I have a number of questions or statements. I've never seen this before, but when I saw the triple windows on the right, I thought, why did they keep that? And I just don't understand why you would keep something that looked very 1960s. And what I was going to say was that as you peeled away layers, you found different things and you wanted to put the cornice back, etc. And all of that is quite admirable. But I think that you should keep the office, you should notify the Office of Historic Preservation in Elizabeth to say, hey, I found these brackets. I replicated them. I'm going to put them back, and keep her in line, keep her in touch with all of these changes. So that, because you've really gone ahead and done a number of things that you don't have approval for. And particularly what does bother me is the brick foundation. I try to get a look at it today, and it, there's so much construction, and they closed Green Street, but I did see part of it. And I did see that there's a water line going across, so the brick comes out further than the rest of the foundation. And I just don't think that the brick is appropriate, and it should be parged so that it would match the rest of the building. And, you know, if you had been keeping Elizabeth informed of these things, you probably would have just done a concrete block and parged it, and it would be done. And I don't think that the brick is appropriate at all. And I was just wondering, you have a grant. Are there any requirements in terms of the restoration of this building or the changes in the building that are part of the grant requirements?
No, the Mellon Foundation funded the Princeton Robeson House and the Philadelphia Robeson House where he died for social causes. It's not an architectural grant. This is not an architectural historic preservation project.
Okay. So I just think that I've said what I think. I mean, I think the windows, you're not going to change at this point, and I believe they were the 3 windows, they were approved 5 years ago, I believe.
Yes.
So, but I think you should be in touch with the office in terms of changes, and I believe that the brick should be parged.
Okay, anyone else have a comment, suggestion? I wonder if we could just take down the slide for a minute. Because I'm just dealing with an iPad, so I can't see everybody. Great, thank you. Great, Tom has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I find this a fascinating piece of work, and I want to salute Kevin for the enormous work that he's done. We are very fortunate in terms of historic preservation to have such a prodigious effort on such an important building in our community. I really feel the pain he's been through. Over at the Princeton Battlefield, I remember we had to replace the sill on the old barn there, which had completely rotted. And when you get down to this rotting sill work and crumbling foundations, you got real problems when it comes to historic preservation. I'm not too fussed with the particular details that have been mentioned, because this is an eclectic, evolving structure that has been through several, how would I say, personalities over the years. And so there's a story to tell there about how architectural styles came and went and so on. I can imagine myself standing on the street listening to a tour guide explain to me why they have the triple windows on the front porch as a relic from the 60s, the 1960s. And that's interesting to me. Given that I come from a finance background, I cannot help but, and one with the project finance element, which is all about funding projects and doing these so over time and according to schedules. I just wonder if, Kevin, you could acquaint us a little bit, because of the importance of this project and the challenge of this project, where you think you are in terms of your original schedule and budget. I can well imagine that we're well beyond any of the original parameters, but where are you, do you think? And you suggested as well that you might be 3/4 of the way through the funding, and I can imagine there's more funding that will be needed here. So it's always chicken and egg with these projects, but I wonder if you could update us on that aspect of your work.
Sure, Tom, thank you. We have donated all of our architectural services to the Robeson House pro bono since we joined this process at Shirley's invitation in 2007. That's over 600 hours of architectural services that we've donated to the project. We're doing the construction work at our cost for the project. Actually, Tom, I'm a little proud to say that I'm pretty much on budget, even though I did the budget 10 years ago.
Wow.
So 10 years ago, I told them it would be $1 million, and they all fell out of their chairs and thought I was stark raving lunatic. But I expected I would have to rebuild every ounce of this. We had a dinner last week celebrating Paul's 125th birth in that building it was Easter Sunday last week. And we all gathered to celebrate the moment. And our president, Ben Colbert, joked, and he turned to me and he said, well, I thought when we brought Kevin in, we'd do a little painting and fix some wiring and plug a few holes in the roof and we'd be good to go.
Yeah.
And poor Ben didn't know what he was getting himself into when Shirley brought me on board.
Wow.
Clearly, we've blown the schedule out of the water because we've had a hard time fundraising.
Absolutely.
The first thing the church had to do was pay off the mortgage. Miss Gladys sold the building back. She was a parishioner of the church, and she sold it back to the church. I think it was 2006 for a super reasonable price, and she was offered double that money by developers in the community who had their knives and forks out. But nonetheless, it was a $400,000 purchase for the church, and they struggled to make those payments. And in an amazing turn of events, the Presbytery of New Brunswick admitted a few years after that, after significant research by members of the Nassau Street Presbyterian Church, that in fact, Reverend Robeson was chased away on trumped up charges, and they actually donated the money to clear the mortgage so the house became paid for and we could focus on raising money to do the construction. And we've been doing that in $30,000 and $40,000 chunks year after year. And last year, an amazing Princeton resident gave us $150,000, and we got a little wind in our sails. And WABC TV News put a long piece about us on the air. And we worked hard to apply to the Mellon Foundation and struggled. And we just found out 4 or 5 months ago that we made the award. We'll get 250 this year, 250 next year. And all of a sudden, the jib is at full sail and the mast is out and we're really cruising. And I think I can have the outside of this place done by the end of this year. And we have enough money in the bank to do that. And as people in town see this appearing, they become more encouraged to donate money. So
Good.
We've actually spent about 500 and change right now. And we got about 500 to go. We got a couple hundred promised to 300. So, I think we're going to need to raise maybe another 250. I would like to see the group have some endowment funds. So, they don't become building rich and dollar poor.
Correct.
But aside from the schedule, which we're way behind, but now I went public last week at the dinner and said, we will have a full opening on Paul Robeson's 127th birthday on April 9th, 2025.
But do keep your notes handy. And there's a book in this, a very rich local history that has to be written, not only about the history of Paul Robeson and all the family associations with this building, but the project history, right?
I am, and I've scrupulously kept every interesting little thing I found, from a bullet and a shiv in the attic to a buried trove of bottles from the 1800s in the backyard. We've salvaged, all of that dirt that I dug out of the front of the building, I trucked to my parking lot up here in Belle Meade, spread it out across the parking lot and sifted through it because I was convinced I would find treasures.
Good for you.
In fact, I did not. But
I
I sleep better at night because I know I didn't throw away something important in the dirt.
Well, that's right. Even that process and the loving attention to be sifting the dirt that you hauled all the way there back to your own place, and you probably did it through the smallest, finest sieve that you could find. Even that's a great part of the story. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, Thomas.
Let me give Shirley a chance to talk. She's had her hand up.
Shirley, you're muted.
Uh-oh. Maybe the computer isn't working.
He has a problem because.
Oh, we got you now, Shirley. Oh, no.
She's partly on her iPad and partly on her phone. Let me see if I can call her and I can use my phone for her to talk into.
Oh, yeah, we've done that before.
Hold on. Shirley, I'm going to call you on your home phone. Pick up the phone, Shirley. Yeah, hold on. I'm going to put you by my speaker.
Sorry, y'all, this computer's not working well.
Can you hear her?
Yeah, we can hear.
Yes.
her.
Okay,
Okay, all right. What I would like to, there's an echo, right?
yes,
You're good.
Let me turn off my iPad. Now is it okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
An echo.
yeah, wait, turn,
Okay, all right, all right. Okay. What I want to do is to give you some background about the house. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
That house was actually a double house. It was 70 and 72 Witherspoon Street. So when Paul was born, he was born in 72 Witherspoon Street, not what it is now, because it was two houses. It was owned by Isaac Stockton. Isaac Stockton had a grocery store there before it was a home. You following me?
Yes.
There was a man whose name was Anthony Simmons. Anthony Simmons was a trustee of Witherspoon Street Presbyterian Church. He was called a rich Negro because he owned an oyster bar, a candy store up by the area where the 5 and 10 used to be, which is now a bookstore. He was the one who bought the house from Isaac Stockton. And when he bought the house, he made it into a manse. So when Reverend Robeson came here, he didn't live in that house at first. He lived with his family at another home. And then when he became the minister, and that was the manse, he moved into that house. And Paul was born in 72. And they had the whole family, but they also had a roomer. And the roomer's name was Ferdinand Sperling. He was a Black lawyer. And he happened to be my aunt's father-in-law, because he married, because they're, okay, that's something else. But anyway, so after the Robesons moved out, it became, I don't know how, Kevin, it became one house. But it can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Yes.
It became one house, and then it became 108 Witherspoon Street, and it became a rooming house. So if you went to the second floor and you were in one bedroom, you could go across the hall and you would be down here at another. Is that correct, Kevin?
Yes, they were, the two houses were at different levels.
Right. So they built so that many people lived there, because a lot of our homes were homes because people couldn't live other places in Princeton. So that's the history. That little house, that little part at the bottom that Kevin was talking about, was not only where the men who worked on the avenue came, it was also a barber shop that Mr. Graham owned, and it also was one of the first places where the colored men met before they got their colored wives. So that's some history about the house. How am I doing, Kevin?
Great. Shirley's my inspiration.
When we got the reparation for Reverend Robeson, it did not start at Nassau. It started at the Witherspoon Street Presbyterian Church, when my junior ushers were given a reenactment of the history, and someone who portrayed Reverend Robeson said, "I was dismissed by the Presbytery of New Brunswick." Someone from the Presbytery heard that and did research that I already had done. So the Presbytery met. Two people met with me, and one was the minister at Nassau, and Reverend White, who was the dean of students at that time. And they got the information from my document, so that the Presbytery part. The other one was that 3 people from the synod met in my dining room, and they were the ones who decided that there would be a reparation for Reverend Robeson, and that's how it all started. So I just want to tell you that, because a lot of our history gets placed on somewhere else. So I just want you to know that it started there. So yeah, but I just want you to know the history of the house. And I think I do have a picture that shows what the double house may have looked like. And Kevin, I'll show it to you, because it was Hillier who said this house looks like the railing that was on the Robeson house. So it may have been when it was a double house, and I will show that to you. But that's a little history I wanted you all to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Shirley. I do think this is a really special situation, because we have a lot of community history that doesn't necessarily jive with a purist approach to architecture. And I do feel that the organization's quite fortunate that part of the building didn't collapse because there was significant problems, like not having footings. I mean, things that you wouldn't know when you started the project. So given these changes, is there a feeling that we should, what do you want to do? Do you want to make Kevin come back? Do you want to affirm the changes he's made and say, stay in touch with Elizabeth? I mean, what is your plan of action here? Yeah,
I
Tom?
just suppose we want to give Kevin, if the Robeson Center people all agree behind him, I want to give Kevin all of our possible support to encourage him to carry on the good work. And do please come back soon. We love this story.
Thank you. I'll be
Yeah.
happy to.
Christine?
I would like to make a motion to approve the changes, but to have the brick foundation parged.
Okay, and
You know, I'd like to point out that you have approved a streetscape redesign that has brick borders along all of your sidewalks. So brick has been introduced in the neighborhood in a way that when I first proposed this 5 years ago, no one wanted to hear to. So I don't think you should find brick so incongruous. Brick is a material of permanence and of strength, and it represents quality. And I think going down into this gallery with brick on both sides of you is ennobling. And stucco is just the choice of covering over something underneath it. It's a cover-up material.
well,
Which
let's
is
see
the
what other
point.
people have to say. Shirley, how do you feel about this?
Oh,
Oh, yeah, you got to do the phone thing again.
okay, hold on.
Actually, there's a motion made. I
Really?
guess we have to ask for a second before we can debate it.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. Sorry. Does anyone want to second Christine's motion? Okay, I'm not seeing a second.
Shirley,
Shirley, did you get the phone?
sorry. Shirley, pick up the phone. Shirley, I'm calling.
Can I say something while we're waiting for Shirley?
Yeah,
The brick on the sidewall, Kevin, was not approved by the Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood. We're doing the same gray pavers that we have at the beginning of Witherspoon Street. So there's no brick on the street.
Well, when I met with
Sidewalk.
Tiffany and Ian, they told me that it was a concrete sidewalk with a brick border on Witherspoon. That's not true?
It's just, as far as I know, it's the 4x8 borders. I don't believe Leighton, I don't believe it was approved. The brick look was not approved, as far as I can remember.
I believe you're right. I think that there are two distinct color pavers, correct? One on the border,
There's paver and concrete. They're
concrete,
not-
right?
they're
Not
not
brick.
that distinct. I mean, if you go, on Witherspoon near Nassau, you'll see pretty much what it's going to look like.
you're right. Elric,
I don't think that's, yes, you might find brick next to it, but that's not the justification. And I think I have to agree that brick is, you're making a demonstrable statement that it's a brick foundation. The whole point of stucco isn't, we wouldn't be introducing stucco except as a parging over another material. And in order not to misrepresent the building with a brick foundation, I have to agree with Christine that parging it is it's a cover up. Exactly. It is a cover up of a mistake.
Yeah, but a lot of the time, a lot of foundations, I owned a house once that had a former foundation. And then it had an extension that was, I don't remember what it was constructed, but the first foundation was all stone. You know, it was like early, maybe 18th century. And it was parged because they used to cover up a lot of stone because it was just what they found to actually build a foundation. So, and it appears that parging this building was parged. And it should be restored as parging.
Okay.
Well,
And I think Shirley, are you on the phone, Shirley?
Again, while we're waiting for Shirley, I'm intrigued with the fact that she has a photograph. This is late in the game, but it seems like that photograph is a very important piece of evidence, and we should make every effort to see what's there, and if some features can be taken from that. It's not too late. I'm very interested in the fact you think that part of it is a barn. We discovered when we were working on the Clark Cottage down on Witherspoon that frame actually has a barn frame that was converted into what looks like a Greek Revival house. I was looking recently, because of my interest in the Momo building, at the early maps, the early bird's eye view, and there are a lot of outbuildings that are shown from what's now the bread company down to that corner, and I'm wondering if any of them, I'll look it up when I get off, and have possible candidates that might have been incorporated when the structure was built or converted.
Mm.
But I think that's the kind of evidence that you've looked at so carefully with the bracketing and all that. But some of these other features, I mean, there's so little left of the original house that that kind of documentation becomes all the more important.
But all you're not going to see you're not going to see the full porch. All you see is a railing and some men sitting in front of it. The other thing is that Kevin has worked very hard on this, and those of us on the Witherspoon on the Paul Robeson House committee really appreciate what he has done. And those who came from Philadelphia, the Philadelphia House, approved of it. I don't know what the problem is. It's something that we all approve and we all like, and we got to get it done, and we all think it's okay.
All right. So, I mean, I'm wondering maybe if, you know, we could let Kevin go, and then we can maybe schedule another session to talk about it after we've done a little research and gone over things. How does that sound?
As long as I'd like the whatever documentation he has, because it may come down now to photographs. We would like to have preserved and incorporated into a final final report or whatever on this project.
There is a picture of Witherspoon Street where you see the trolley tracks, the area where they call, okay, you know where I am, where they call African Alley, and you can see the side of the house, but all you see is the railing. You don't see the front of the house, so there's no way we could see what the front of the house looks like.
Okay.
The only front we have is the pictures that we have when Mrs. Taylor is there.
Well, if we're going to have the brackets above, why not incorporate the railing below?
We have, Elric. That's what I've drawn on this porch.
Good, I didn't get that.
I want to remove.
Am I muted?
No, you're good. You're good. Christine, oh, go ahead.
I want to
Christine.
remove my motion since it wasn't seconded.
Okay. Go ahead. All right, so, let's see, how does it sound if we reconvene at a time convenient for Kevin? I don't know, in a month or two? And wrap this up?
Well, candidly, I can't stop a month or two. I
Okay,
need to keep this project going.
okay. Well, I mean, but the parging, you could parging happen later then? I mean,
Oh, yeah,
that,
if you're just talking about parging, I thought you wanted me to stop.
no, no,
No,
no. I
I
think
can
we're really
parge
talking
it. I
about,
can parge this thing. If I open on April 9th, 2025, I can parge it on April 4th, 2025.
that's what I thought. So I think that's really the sticking point right now. So I think you can just keep going with whatever you're doing, and then we'll just work out the whole parging thing later.
If we are to do that, I think one of us then has to bring it forward as a resolution and then give clear direction as to what it is we wish to explore. Perhaps Christine can help us with that. I would like to hear more. I take to heart Elric's always so precise points of view. I'm also listening carefully, however, to Kevin and the architect's perspective. And this building has evolved over time, so it has many different themes to it in terms of history, not just all the way back to what it looked like at the very time it was built. So fascinating story. But I do think we, in order to give Kevin and even perhaps the other members of the committee reassurance that we probably amongst ourselves ought to decide what it is we want to do, by when do we want to make our comments so that they can rest comfortably, knowing that we're going to make a decision one way or the other.
Julie, the discussion so far has been to certainly approve the other changes, the cornice, the street signs, the marker. The only other issue, as you were talking about, is the parging. Christine withdrew that motion after hearing what Shirley had to say. And I don't know if you think that issue is going to come back again, or if you don't think it will, in deference to Shirley and what's been done. You can go ahead and vote tonight without the parging, and we can write it up.
Okay, so is there another motion?
Motion would be to approve all of the changes outlined during the presentation.
All right,
Except for the basement, when we're leaving the basement to another day, right? The parging to another day?
No, unless there's a motion, if you renew your motion to say that you want to discuss parging further, then you would lay it over like Julie is suggesting. All I'm saying is that you withdrew the motion, there was no second for the motion, and there was an argument advanced by Shirley that that we don't want it to have to be parged. So if you want to revisit that issue, you do what Julie suggests, you carry the matter forward so that you can talk about the parging. And there'd be no reason to do a supplemental resolution for the other 4 items. If you're satisfied that even if you talk about it again, based upon what you heard tonight, you're not going to require it to be parged, you can approve the whole thing tonight and you're done.
right.
But I think, Ed, you've also suggested that we can even advance everything tonight and then decide on parging later, because that, as Kevin has suggested, could be done later in any event, if we so decide.
If you decided, if you want to continue to have that issue in flux, yes, you could defer discussion on the parging.
So I'd like to move it. I'm thinking of Christine here and hoping I'm not treading on too much here, but I would like to move that we accept the recommendations presented to us tonight. And then with full view that internally we can discuss things further. And if the parging issue wishes to resurrect, we can bring that up later. But I think we're in a good position at the moment to move this so that Kevin and his team can have another jolt of another surge of confidence and move it forward.
All right. So you're proposing to approve everything as Kevin has presented?
I am.
Okay. And is there a second to that motion?
Okay.
Okay,
It's the British Parliament here.
yes. Does anyone else have another motion or,
Uh,
and did we lose David?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think
It
that
looks
was
like-
one of
Yeah,
the-
we lost him. Okay. All right. So,
Is Shirley connected? Is she hearing all this?
Yes, she
I
is.
got
Okay,
lost again.
okay. So
right, so-
Shirley, Tom proposed that we just accept everything like Kevin has presented. Do you want to second that motion?
Yes, I second it.
Okay, here we go.
all
All
right. now
right,
we can discuss.
Elizabeth.
Julie, for clarification, it can't include the brick basement, right? Because you're going to be talking about that.
Well, I thought, I thought Tom was saying he wanted to propose accepting everything
The brick basement.
and the brick basement.
Okay.
Is that right?
That is correct, and I'm assuming that all of that can be parged sometime in the future, but I'm hearing from Kevin that he's got to get a move on with this.
But you
And,
can't bring it up later, Tom.
Right, if
I
we
mean, you can
accept it,
approve it now, you can't bring it
Done.
back up later
Can I, all right, just to clarify, why is that we can't bring that up later?
because you're approving everything now.
Right, but we can make a recommendation later to do parging, can't we?
No.
No.
I think you want to separate that out now then. You can say
Right.
that you approve the 3 items and that the parging will be further discussed.
Is that correct, Ed, just from my naive understanding?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, we have this motion's to be seconded, so now we can discuss it, right?
Okay, so I guess I want to clarify.
All right, so
Your
let's move it. It's been seconded. We'll vote on it and we'll take it off, or we'll table it, or we'll revise it, but we need to have a second in order to discuss it further, right?
Okay, so you're proposing that
The whole thing.
that the whole thing without parging, just keep the brick and keep everything and not just like, this is done.
Correct. With
Okay.
great respect for all the views on the committee. Yes, that's what I'm proposing.
Okay. And Shirley, you're seconding that. Okay. All right.
Discussion.
Okay, so I think it's a time for a vote.
Would you like me to take
Well,
roll call?
Yeah, sorry, I think we
Yeah.
have to discuss it, and thus I
Well, but
just
we
want to
ha-
hear
we-
one more time from
No.
Kevin.
Tom, we really did discuss it. There was some views that parging needed to happen. You're saying it doesn't. You have a second.
Yes.
So we should
Technically, I think
vote.
technically, we were discussing it out of order because we did not have a second. I have one more question I want to ask Kevin
Oh,
before we vote.
Okay.
Sure thing.
Yeah, Kevin, can you just describe it to me again, the building schedule or the construction schedule you have for the bricks that you touched on before, just to help us get more clarity on that?
So we're going to concentrate on the Witherspoon Street elevation now. We need to build the porch before we can install the siding, because the siding has to be flashed to the porch roof and all the pieces of the porch that are attached to the building. So I can't do any siding on the front until I get the porch up. So now that I poured the concrete floor of the porch last Friday, I'm going to start setting columns and building the porch roof next. When that's done, then I'm going to trim the Witherspoon Street elevation the same way we've done the Green Street and the north elevation in the 4-inch exposure beveled siding that matches the original building siding.
So is that to ask then, Kevin, that if we, let's say, do not approve this and we stop, or we could then proceed otherwise, but without the bricking, does that dramatically alter your schedule and interfere with your flow?
No, if I had to cover up the brick, that's an independent task. It doesn't slow up or retard the building of the porch.
So presumably you could even come to us later on and propose parging that we might have to approve through this committee. Is that correct?
Yes, but I thought that's what I was doing tonight.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think,
Sorry, I'm just trying to clarify.
so Tom, I think he's saying that he doesn't want to parge it. And Christina and Elric were saying they would like him to parge it,
Right.
but Christine made a motion and no one seconded it. So now
Right.
you made a motion to
Right.
not parge it. So that's what we're voting on.
All right, I still stand by my motion.
Okay. And Shirley, you still second it, I guess.
I just want to make it clear that the brick is already installed. It's already
Yeah.
there. It's not something that's going to happen. It has happened.
Well, furthermore, the brick is holding up the porch.
Right, right.
It's a structural element of the building. It's not a cosmetic element. It's a structural element.
Now, I
Right.
think we understand that, but I just don't think it's appropriate given all of the guidelines that we have. that
Okay,
we
so-
make decisions upon.
All right, so let's vote on the motion that Tom and Shirley made and then go from there.
Okay. Mr. Endersby,
Yes.
Ms. Satterfield,
Yes.
Ms. Howard,
No.
Mr. Pyle,
Yes,
Ms. Friedman,
Yes.
Ms. Lewandowski,
No,
Mr. Shore's not here, Ms. Capizzoli.
Yes. Okay, so you're good to go.
Thank you,
Kevin.
everybody. I appreciate your time. I'm sorry to make this so torturous, and I promise to keep Elizabeth close to my side as I work on the project.
All right, thank
She
you
found-
very much.
She found me walking down the sidewalk the other day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you also, because it's been a long time coming, and this is for a tribute to not only Paul Robeson, but to all of the people in this neighborhood who worked so hard in Princeton, and it's going to be a beacon in this community and in Princeton. So thank all of you who said yes.
Ed, is there anything that needs to be submitted from Kevin for us to update our project files?
I don't think so. I mean, we have the summary, we have the record tonight, and we'll put together a resolution which will incorporate it all, and that would be the document.
Okay, all right, because there was no application or anything, so it was just him coming in today.
It's really an amended 2018 application with updates.
Thank you.
We
I
can
have
do it.
one other suggestion. That is just that this is recorded, right? I think it's very important that this kind of recording be kept. I'd like to think that 50 years from now, people could hear Shirley describing the history of this building
Very
in
good
her
idea.
own words, in her own voice.
Good.
And anyway, that I come down on her side.
Well, and thank you, Kevin, for coming in.
You're
We
very
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and my entire crew appreciates it. We take a lot of pride in this project. I assure you, we're trying to leave. This is going to be my hallmark project in town.
amen.
Well, we wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night. All right, we're going to discuss the Witherspoon Street improvements, the Phase 2 sidewalk changes from Paul Robeson Place to Green Street. You're done, Ed, right? Thank you so much for staying. We
Oh,
really
man.
appreciate it. That was critical. Thank you.
Very helpful.
All
Thank
right,
you.
see you later, Ed. Okay. So Elizabeth, do you want to talk about our meeting there?
Sure, so engineering and Adam at the Arts Council, executive director over there, and myself, we met out there because obviously the Witherspoon Street improvements is marching north on Witherspoon Street. And one of the critical points is the Arts Council. And the reason that's critical is because they have this unusual large sidewalk plaza area in front of their building along not only the entrance, but along the rest of their frontage along Witherspoon Street, which is inconsistent with the design that the HPC has looked at and the subcommittee has looked at as far as their design detail. So what Adam had said is that the existing diagonal design that was created, that's existing there now, was intended to kind of draw the eye and people to the Arts Council because it's diagonal to their building. So he was hoping to be able to continue that. And I believe that I sent something today which showed a picture. There's like a photographic picture. It looks like this. Did you see that got sent to you?
I had no idea what I was looking at.
Sorry. Okay, so this came from engineering, and if you could see that the diagonal of the pavers are going towards their building. When the subcommittee went out, and I really appreciate them always going out last minute because we're always told about things last minute. They looked at that concept and they understood it, but they felt that perhaps a little different design, which was radial, to still draw you in, but they had to be able to still integrate the sidewalk with it without making a break or whatever. And Frida did a great job. I really appreciate her working on this. And Frida, are you able to pull up what you had provided? And she had labeled everything A, B, C, D, E, all the way to L. And that way people could say where they felt was the best point in which to stop the radial or to continue it too.
Okay, so I'll share my screen and let's see.
Okay.
All right, can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Right, so we wanted a focal point to be here where the pole roofs, and I don't think it's a bust, it's a head, right? It's on this pedestal. And if we radial,
Mistake.
I think that's a column there to the building, actually.
is a what?
The column. To
The plinth.
So we all know what it is anyway. So it's right here. And we figured that we would radial the design out from that point. The question is where to stop it and where to start lining the sidewalk, because we want to do a double strip of 4x8 pavers lining the edge of the sidewalk, and then in between will be poured concrete. So, and these lines would be the same double lines of pavers. So you have an 8x8 inch wide strip following the radial. So pretty much we're discussing and wondering where to stop this line, this radial line. And that's why I gave it letters, because it's, I do so many Zoom calls. I number and letter everything. So when people are referring to a line, we know exactly what it is. So if you say, well, let's stop it at line C or B or whatever, we can take that into consideration.
So the lines are incised in poured concrete, is that correct?
Yes, insides will be poured concrete. And I'm sure you've seen the pavers on Witherspoon Street at the beginning, the first phase.
Yeah.
It'll be the same. It'll be 4x8 in a double row. So going down each, line would be the double row. And then when we got to this point, some point here, we would then transition into placing the double pavers along the edge of the sidewalk on both sides. So we just need opinions, recommendations.
May I ask a question, Frida?
Yes.
First of all, this is, I feel like I'm in an advanced geometry class with you here in Zoom school, so I appreciate that. Got to figure out what the angles are of all these slices.
22.5.
You're on top of things, girl. So the double line of pavers seems to constitute the outline of the sidewalk compared to the inner sidewalk, may I call it that, that then radiates into the stairs up to the Arts Center. Is that double line itself actually necessary? Is that do we need to demark the sidewalk or could we turn this whole thing into a radial sidewalk?
Oh,
Well, that's, I mean, that's an opinion, you know, that you could give, but we had approved the double lining for
Yeah,
the rest of the
right.
sidewalk in the Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood. So
Mhm,
we figured it would be a good way to tie in the Arts Council
mhm,
with the rest, you know, as the sidewalk continued.
mhm.
Beyond Green Street, that we would then continue it with the double pavers.
So for you, this double line has some integrating capacity for the sidewalks down the street, I suppose.
Right.
yeah. And so and the little hatch lines are the street, obviously.
Right.
Oh, and yes, of course, my mistake. Okay, thank
So
you for
it's just-
clarifying that.
Yeah,
Right.
this is the sidewalk. This is the way you get onto the
Got it.
sidewalk.
All right, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you 100. All right, so I'm sorry, I mistook the street as part of the sidewalk, my mistake.
Oh, I see. Okay, no.
So I would propose one solution is that the building, the outline of the building is what determines where the radial lines stop. And I don't know, I think I'm sorry. So a line L, for instance, intersects, what is that rectangular double line that?
This is a planter.
A planter.
The planter and this.
It's the edge of the sidewalk too, so if you carry the L,
Right.
it pretty much goes all the way down to where it intersects at Green Street, but there are little cutouts for benches that are existing.
Okay.
And then that little pinched in area, Frida, if you could show that with your cursor between K and L, that's the bus drop off.
Oh, no.
Now we're clear.
Right, but are we seeing the outline of the building?
No, it goes all the way down. It goes beyond, it goes parallel to L, sort of.
Mhm.
But what is the
Okay.
circle
And-
above the statue there behind? Isn't that the
That's the building, that's that.
right? And that's what I'd like.
Oh, I
to
see. So we
reflected
are
in the
seeing
boards.
that. Yeah.
And the-
It
and the
seems like
driver-
you're introducing something which doesn't reflect that, and the opportunity exists to follow that curve, but at a greater distance from the building. As far as the bust is concerned, you know, to me, that's movable, but the building that's the dominant feature that Graves used to define his addition.
Right. So you're trying to figure out whether the radial lines go from A to L.
It seems like they ought to go from the middle of the circle that's reflected above it, which is presumably the outline of the building.
Oh, so you're saying to pull that apex up to where the circle is, where the. canopy-
Up to the center. If you drew the
Put it
full
at center.
circle, you
Yeah.
take the point in the middle of the circle. Little,
Oh, here, okay.
yes,
That's right.
yes.
Oh,
Okay,
that's a thought.
But then I think you're trying to pull, the intention of the radial lines is to pull people to the stairs,
Point to the stairs.
pull people to the entrance.
right, and I think it does regardless of whether it's there or probably where Elric is saying is probably better because there's no end point, where it's drawn now, it actually stops there. But when you bring it to the building, it actually draws you up the stairs into the building more.
At least it ought to be examined, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Frida, was that part of your thinking at all when you looked at this?
No, actually, because as a committee, we decided to make this the focal point
Yeah.
by, bringing it before the rest of you guys
Mhm.
gives us other ideas. So,
I have a question.
Mhm.
Line C and K, Frida, it's emboldened. Is there a reason for that? Is that a suggestion of you? I'm trying to really follow this.
Not necessarily. Elizabeth and I were discussing back and forth. And, when I looked at C and K, the sidewalk is 3 feet here and it's so much wider here. So I thought this line would sort of be a natural progression to then transition into the, the lining of the sidewalk, since it's so narrow. But it was just a suggestion and a discussion point.
I think if you're gonna pull it off call it the north side of the apex, that then, then it kind of begs the question, well, why not pull it through the building? And what's the significance of the circle? And it's, it's not significant. It's just the getting people to the entrance and, anyway.
And I think that actually building it into the building makes the angles less acute too. So it's not necessarily that you want to make the Arts Council the focal point of this intersection or the Witherspoon Jackson, but it's a way to transition the sidewalk, but still give it some, significance and presence. It's kind of a transitional location. It was the neighborhood Y at one point. And it was right next to the Paul Robeson intersection. So I think that, there is a certain amount of significance, but I don't think that you want to say that is the significant point. So I think.
Well, and the strange condition is that, interesting condition and appropriate for the Arts Council, but the corner entrance, right? It's not typical.
So, and I think the challenging thing I found is, can we get the radial to align with the edge of one side of the sidewalk so we can continue the walk? How is that transition going to be from the radial to the sidewalk that connects to Green Street? I know that the subcommittee had talked about where it ends on Paul Robeson, and they felt that it should stop at the driveway, which is an easier point because you're probably going to have the macadam or concrete apron there that's going to break it up anyway. But when you've got the one that's going along Witherspoon Street, it's a continuation of this design that should have a nice transition.
Could we possibly see the model that you showed at the very beginning, which showed the actual profile of the tower at the corner there?
You mean that picture I held up?
Yeah. Oh, it was on the, oh yeah, sorry.
I could see if I can.
Not that.
Let me see if I can pull it up. Frida, I'm going to try to share if that's okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course.
But you're getting the roof view, right?
That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, but you really want the ground, the intersection of I don't know, if you're gonna incise these lines, I think you have to kind of take it all the way and just let the line of the building be the cutoff and the line of the sidewalk be, that double line that's going down Witherspoon and Green be the other. They just die into those. Do you think I have strong feelings about this?
As we wait for the pictures to come up, Frida, in your committee looking at this, did you have an architect with you who could opine on how suitable is the idea of the sidewalk structure with the Graves building itself?
No, not that I know. No, we didn't have one when I was there.
Yeah, I raised that just to-
really a sidewalk structure though.
I think what maybe we should do is throw this out to engineering, because I think we're all intrigued by the radial idea. I think it's an interesting idea, but we haven't really heard a response from engineering as to whether they could do this. If they could, how would they do this? I think it's important to get some feedback.
Yeah,
It will
agreed.
definitely be a custom design. It will definitely, it's going to cost.
In
So-
comparison, sorry, I'm interrupting.
I have another
Christine has her
question.
hand up.
In the street, the paving, does the
Elizabeth?
paving, the pavers transition to asphalt?
Yeah, I think it's asphalt here.
So like I was just gonna suggest line K and line A.
Oh,
We're close.
okay, yes,
Maybe you could send it out tomorrow.
Yeah, it'd be
I
great.
can
to
I can
actually-
find mine. Do you want me to find mine, Elizabeth?
But let me just try one more. I might be on the wrong drive, sorry.
Okay.
I raised my consideration thinking about the Woodrow Wilson School Plaza and how that was restructured after Yamasaki put in the building back in the 60s and moved Corwin Hall and all that. You'll remember that the pool there around the statue used to be somewhat ovular, and then they changed the substance on the walk and squared it off. That's one issue. And the other is the introduction of the triangular, whatever it is, arch, I guess you could say, introduced rather more recently. One could argue whether this is in full keeping with what was originally intended by the original architect. Although I'm also in
Not at
favor.
all.
Not at all, right? Right.
Right. So may we wish to look into this to see if Mr. Graves, what he might have thought about this, or someone who's familiar with the aesthetic intent of the actual structure.
I like that.
Pulled up, if you wanna.
Well, but this is public space. This isn't.
Is that it?
Ah, what do you
Yeah,
know?
that's it. That's
Okay.
it.
Good.
Ah,
What?
boy,
Yeah.
so here's the driveway. Okay,
Yeah.
along, this is Paul Robeson here. This is Witherspoon Street here. So
Yeah.
this is what engineering and Adam at the Arts Council thought would work with.
Okay.
And then the HPC subcommittee thought, well, maybe there could be something better, that because, when you break it off, you're going to start having this over here. So,
Oh, so they're saying break it off as it's drawn here?
Yeah,
yeah, like that. And then they were going to do the same thing like over here. They'd break it off something like that or
So
somewhere.
sort of
More like
random.
an apron than a radial.
Yeah, and then it'd go like that. But if you had the radial and, if you're pulling it up here to the building, here is the circular piece that Elrick's talking about, and this is the canopy that comes out. If you could bring the radial, maybe do it that way, and then transition where all of a sudden the edging will at one point hit the edge of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
But again, the focal point, it should be where you'd stick the pin in if you're
Yeah,
if
maybe.
you're using a compass,
Right.
right in the
You
middle.
got to keep on using that.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a pretty, visually complex textured pattern. I'm not sure why are we adding the radial lines?
I think that because the subcommittee didn't like this. And they were looking for an alternate.
Doesn't it look like the pavers are actually on the drive, on the sidewalk there? In the photograph?
This is their little sidewalk plaza area.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the way that they are assuming that they would be installed.
I think that I like Frida's idea much better.
Well, we all came up.
I don't think there's any question. This is terrible. This looks like it was designed by engineers personally.
Bingo. Right.
But I have to give you a little background as to why we thought the radial would be interesting, and that's because Adam really likes the idea of people walking on the sidewalk being drawn into the Arts Council. And how do you draw people in with directional lines? So
That's exactly what a corner, the intent of a corner entrance is. And I'm not, I guess I would really question if you need it to be so heavy-handed as to diagram on the ground, how to get in there. I mean, that the corner
also true.
entrance does that. It's, yeah, anyway.
I'm with you.
Well, Elizabeth, do you think that you could ask engineering, like how they would interpret a
Oh,
radial idea and see
Ooh.
what they,
that's a radical idea, not a radial idea. We're talking engineers. Engineers don't,
I'm pretty sure.
the
they
aesthetics
say-
don't enter the picture.
that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they'd say no, because I don't think that they'd understand how to do it. And I don't think that it has to be symmetrical if it was something that the commission felt was a good idea. I think that if it's like each radial point wasn't the same dimension, it's not all 10 feet off the edge. I think if it's offset, it's better, because then if there's a mistake, you're not gonna see it, and it's not gonna be so, I think when it's exact, it makes it very directional.
Can
But
I point out?
you have to start somewhere. I mean.
Let me
we have-
point out something, if I can. If there's a shadow line, I suspect it's a shadow line of a telephone pole, I don't know, which seems to go from the middle at the bottom of the photograph toward the blue circle.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see that.
And then beyond that, there's a shadow of the tower itself toward Witherspoon Street.
yeah, on the far side, yeah.
If you took that line, if you did that line so it lined perpendicularly or parallel, whichever, to the bump out there, and
Which
took
bump
that
out, this
space,
bump out or this?
yes, that, just take a line, I'm pointing to the screen.
Yeah.
Take a line from up there and right across basically to that shadow line. It's a little off, but take it straight across there and treat the
I think though,
semicircular.
Ah, yes.
that you're reading this, that it's, I'm not sure it's appropriate to read it from a bird's eye view. You know, it's really not a view that one ever
Yeah,
sees. And I think the shadows change depending on the time of.
Oh, yeah, no. It's just because it was a way of describing the space. And I would definitely introduce a lot more landscaping. It shouldn't all be paved. And that just
I
as-
think, I mean, this is it's like a kind of a little philosophical question. I don't think it's just, I mean, I don't think it's just like, I don't know, you're really making like that column, whatever that is, if that's the center, you're making it a very big deal.
Oh, no,
And-
no, no. That's actually not the column. It's the blue circle of the.
No,
behind it.
I'm saying what,
Yeah,
would-
oh, I see the plinth underneath the
yeah.
Paul Robeson's sagging head.
I don't know. I think, I mean, is this sidewalk not, it's public space, right?
Yeah.
And so the Arts Council can just do this out here?
Well, they asked them, engineering asked them, and what happened is Adam said that diagonal pattern was intentional. It was done intentionally to direct people or draw people to the Arts Council. As you
Right.
said, because it's a corner building, it's advantageous that way. But I do want to interject something. So this drop off, if you look here, that little bump out, which is the bus stop there, what we talked about is taking that area and actually creating a landscape strip along here.
Uh-huh.
That's the intersection. So we get a little bit more greenery, also reduce some of that plaza area. And that would also be on the other end over here that goes over to the Green Street intersection.
And would that help to direct pedestrian traffic away from the vehicular traffic? As
Well,
a,
I think it will create a separation.
that's
but
what I mean.
I
Yeah,
think it's also an opportunity to bring some more greenery into the.
yeah, I'm all in favor of that.
I think we should just remember there's a low brick wall that provides seating all the way around the building.
They're
And
here.
that to cut it off at an arbitrary point looks very strange.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Oh, well.
Well, maybe we can Meet again.
Can we
Well,
get a grounds, a plan of the, of the,
For-
of the, of the existing conditions on the ground, so we have a better notion
Yes,
of the building and the curb?
yes, I have that.
Perfect.
Hold on. Let's see, where is it?
Well, I don't need, I thought more of like sending it out so we could play with it.
Oh, yes, I can do that. It's pretty large. I think it's like 10 scale, but it's a few pages mirrored together to one sheet.
But it hits the sidewalk hits a driveway on this side where we can see by, yeah, right there. And then on the other side somewhere, it hits a driveway, right?
It hits the
Further,
street.
further
on
down.
Main Street.
The bus stop.
It's Green Street.
Yeah.
And,
the bus
but
stop
that-
is just the indent here.
and the building goes all the way down to Green Street.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, there's that logic, just do the pattern all the way.
Right, from one driveway all the way around to Green Street.
Right.
Which
Mhm.
pattern are you referring to, this one or?
Yeah, this one, like, don't, like not, not more, just texture.
one?
Look for
Yeah. Yeah, just, I mean, it's all,
Serious shortcomings needs to.
Well, I
fix
have a
it.
problem with that because then what happens is when you get to the intersection, the pavers are going this way. So it'd be
Yeah.
nice to have it match at one point.
mm,
Yeah,
no, but his whole, I mean, well, I don't know, this whole, the building doesn't match the, right? Well,
No, the-
anyway, I'll
no,
stop.
it's not.
Take the, if you look at the red line behind it, and you struck, you took that line, okay, you spot, no, let's get back to the point, let's pull that out toward the street from that point. Okay, that's where the change should occur.
But
And then
that,
do it-
that has nothing to do with anything on, like, if you're,
Well,
you can't pull a line from the plan. Just
But-
But
like-
if you're designing, you look for lines and you look for points.
Yeah,
And the
but you
same
have
thing
to-
going from the other corner so that you have the diagonals fit within that space. And otherwise, the sidewalk fits the streets.
That's the point.
You're looking for a place to break it for the pattern. That seems like a logical point because you're looking up at the building and that's where those brick walls are, define the corner of the building. This is crazy. If I had it on paper, I'd have a better chance of
Yeah.
Well,
making-
maybe we should give everybody a little time to play with it. Go out to the site, take a look, get some ideas. I mean, do we have that time, Elizabeth?
Not my, I mean, they extended it till today, but I mean, we can just tell them that, that they are still working on it. It's a complicated, location and they want to get it right.
Right.
Because if you
Right.
guys don't do it, I'm not sure who will.
I don't think we should allow them to rush us this time. I mean, because if it comes out of fiasco, you know what's gonna happen, right? HPC said that we should do that, so I think we should let engineering know that, we would like to take a little more time and get a little more input.
Okay, here is the site plan. Let's see.
You sent that to us, we all have that.
Mhm.
Oh, I
Yeah,
think the
we
subcommittee.
yeah, we have
had it.
that.
We have that, because that's what I use to do
But
the.
Elric, I think only the subcommittee has it. I don't think the
Oh, I see.
commission has it. So here's Paul Robeson, here's Wiggins, here's Witherspoon Street, here's the bus bump out. Here is the outline of the Arts Council building as it comes. It doesn't actually show everything, but here's some steps here, some steps here, here. You can see, here's that planter. And here are little areas where the benches are. And here is Paul Robeson House here. And then here is the sidewalk that has to be connected to it. So this area here that I talked about is going to be additional landscape. And again, over here, some of that will be additional landscape till we get to the ramp.
Okay.
So I can send this out to everybody else.
Thank
But
you.
it'll hopefully give you a better idea. And the other two drawings that were sent out already, the one that Frida did and the one that was the bird's eye view from the rooftop that engineering had, you can reference those too.
Great,
You-
thank you.
Elizabeth's comment just now reminds us about whether, how much landscape do we need at that corner? Because if you start to put planters all around there, you start to block it in and create its own little plaza rather than encouraging a easier flow from across the street into that area. So,
I think that the intent was to have it low. I mean,
low,
obviously, I mean, it's a corner intersection, so you have to have a site triangle anyway, so you don't want to have it probably
yes,
24 inches high.
yeah, but, or even any, I'm not actually a fan of these planters myself, but they can become barricades. That's my worry.
It's not a planter, it's like the grass strip area.
Oh,
Like
it's, I mean,
Yeah,
ground
like
level.
between
Okay.
the street and the sidewalk, they're just
Okay.
creating a grass strip or a landscape area. You know, that's an opportunity to do some plantings.
All right. We'll work on it.
Okay, I'll send this out. All right, I'm gonna
Thank
stop.
All right, thank you. We have one last item, that's the master plan. So I'm going to turn to Christine for that.
Dear.
Okay, I'll go through what I've done and where things lie. Given our discussions on the subcommittee, I did changes to the existing plan, which is probably going to be massaged and put into a different form. I did it for content, not form, because I think, well, for one thing, they're really not doing a lot on this, and they wanted us to be very specific as to address or block and lot. And I think that that's a bit of a mistake, because when you study an area for a district, sometimes you realize the building next door is important, and if it doesn't have its address, then I don't know if that presents a problem as far as the master plan not including it. So I did changes in terms of form, and I mean, in terms of content, and David sent me a list of different properties, some of which I had, some of which were not in there, and I put them in as best as I could, but there were things where he said fences and he didn't say where they were, and a certain type of curbing, which he didn't even really describe what the curbing was like, but I just put it there. And what happened was I had to deal with my taxes, and at the same time, Roger said, I want to work on this. And Elric at the same time had sent me several lists, and every time I opened them, they were JPEGs and not Word or PDFs. I don't know why, and I had a good tech working on my computer for like 3 or 4 days, but they were coming in a JPEG. So, but that's at the point where Roger said that he was going to work on it, and then he came down with COVID and he was sick. So it's still out there.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. It sounds like a struggle, especially during tax time. So maybe, take care of that, and then, we
Well,
can get back to it.
I have, but Marge was going to pick up on it, and then he got sick.
Mm-hmm.
So he said today that he was like foggy headed and he didn't want to necessarily come to the meeting, but that he was getting better. So I think he's going to pick that up.
Oh,
So-
nice.
Christine, you saw the email I sent out, right? That had all the attachments from that you had provided, that Elric had provided, and David provided. So that's all out for the commission, and maybe some of them want to talk about any of them. They feel that, yes, that this is worthy, or maybe this one we don't necessarily need, because our list is getting pretty long. So if there's an opportunity even for us to provide a district versus individual ones, that would at least consolidate some of the
And you
properties.
know what, today I was going over everything and I found a sheet that I had put notes on, and I don't know if I included all of that. So I will look at that to make sure that I made all those changes. But now it's like in Rogers Court. And I was thinking that maybe David would work with him too.
Okay, well, maybe after Roger and David get a chance to look at it, go over it with Christine, then when they're done, then they could send it out and we could go through it.
Okay. Christine, do we have any idea when the consultant's gonna need some of this back from us? Or it's kind of open-ended,
The
right?
thing is, they want us to be so specific. And I'm not gonna be doing all that work. I'm not gonna be sitting down for days on end with tax maps. I can't do that.
Mhm.
So I think that the consultant should do some work.
One thing that occurs to me is that it's important that we address what we perceive to be threatened buildings as individual buildings. It's one thing to try and put together a whole district, but my feeling all along has been that we should be addressing specific buildings. And some of them are in areas that are either the building itself or the property is threatened with change. So we might
Can't anticipate that, because look at Jugtown and look at Prospect. They just bloomed out of nowhere.
Yeah, well, hard to say, but I mean, we and any listing that I did years ago obviously just covered the township. So it's
Right.
a whole new challenge to think about the borough, which has traditionally had the greatest record of change.
Well, Christine, I just want to say how much we appreciate your work and your expertise and your, professional background for doing this. And I think we all look forward to having Roger and David run through it. And then, I think we can all come together again and take a look at what they've, the combined product.
I do want to say that I think Elric's list, that 2 of the pages have block and lots. And that was done in 1999. And oddly enough, there's some of my handwriting from back then on my mind, because I don't remember it. He has the block and lots. Now, the tax maps were changed and redone in 1994. So I just want to ask Elizabeth, have there been other changes in terms of block and lots? Because the block and lots that Elric had on those sheets might still be valid then.
I'd have to ask Fred.
Okay.
All right. Well, again, we appreciate your work. It's really important. And I know that we'll be at the table when they have their public meeting regarding the historic preservation element. So, hopefully we'll get a much, much better product.
It's very, very disappointing that Clark, Caton, and Hins is really not involved.
Yeah.
They're good.
It's really a disappointment. And then I don't have anyone with the expertise on staff.
Right. I mean, I think there's, with planning, there's been a lot of difficulty because they thought they were going to hire somebody and then they couldn't. So yeah, it's tough. It is tough, but I think we're making it better.
Yeah, right now, I just don't want to let everybody know it's going to be hundreds of properties, hundreds, not 80 or 25. It's going to be like 300.
Wow.
So,
okay.
But
All
it's
right.
warranted. That's just it. It's warranted. And I don't know about picking out every thing in the borough, because I only worked with the borough for 2 years. And, there were things that I know George McKellen's, people know who George McKellen is. He had a house, I think, in the borough. And I used to know where it was and I couldn't remember. And I pulled up Clifford Zink and asked him if he knew it, and he said he didn't know it. And I went through Connie's book and I couldn't find it.
Is that the house at the corner of great, no, wait a second. The 2.5-story house was on the market last year. Out toward the seminar, out toward the Institute. If you took Olden Lane and go down Olden Lane, it's on the right-hand side. Is that the McClellan house?
I don't know. You know, I don't remember. And I don't remember how I knew in the first place.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it's in the borough. Well, you know, we still use that term because the line of demarcation was there for a really long time, and it makes it easier to speak about a property, but I don't know. I can't, I know it should be on the list, and maybe it is on the list, and maybe it's designated as part of a district, but I don't know where it is.
Battle Road, the corner of Battle Road. That's what I'm trying to think of.
Battle Road, okay, I don't know. I don't know.
Battle and Olden.
Without starting to do title searches, I don't know how to, you know, that's what you just start
Or
doing.
Springdale and I'm sorry.
It might be one of the properties on the 1981 architectural survey that was the former borough. And you know, the architectural survey was not on their suggested list. It was only on the township list. So it could possibly be there.
Yeah, it might be there. Yeah, that's a good
All
point.
right. Well, I mean, you guys keep talking and email and, you know, keep thinking. I'm sure it'll come to you. So I think we're supposed to do public comment. Is there anyone from the public?
Yes, Richard Ryan.
Oh, I don't know if Richard wants to talk. You know,
Okay.
he's a journalist.
Okay. Richard, if you
But-
do, raise your hand. But
Yeah,
otherwise, keep it
if you
down.
want to talk, raise your hand. If not, I think we just have any reports and then we're gonna adjourn.
Madam Chair, can I just ask, what would the master plan subcommittee are they looking for anything from HPC? Christine, do you want them just to look at the list that was sent to them and comment, or just, is it for FYI at this point?
But say that again, I don't quite.
The suggested list that you have, that you got from David and Elric and whatever you had collected that you had
David's
sent me?
Incorporated into the body of the,
So it was distributed to the HPC. this
right, but I'm just saying that it's also in the body of the report, of the draft of the.
Right, but is there anything that you would like the other commission members to do with that? I mean, is it just FYI?
think
Or
he
would
could look at it and see what, you know, could ring bells, he could bring out ideas by looking at the list, both in both places.
Thank you.
All right, and then I guess we're waiting for Roger and David to kind of refine this before, you know, we all look at it.
Okay.
Okay,
But it's out there for anybody to, you know, as Elizabeth said, she sent it. And it's out there if anyone wants to look at it now.
okay, thank you. And again, thank you so much for your work. It's really, really appreciated. Do you have any reports, Elizabeth?
I don't have any reports, but I did want to note that the Historic Trust Conference is coming up. I believe it's in Atlantic City this year. Is that correct? Is that what I saw? I think I.
Yeah, at Stockton University and the beginning of June.
Yeah, so I just wanted to let people know about that. I'm trying to see if I can find it on here. Oh, it's June 10th through the 12th. in
Okay.
Atlantic.
All right. All right, does anyone else have anything? Elric?
I have something I'd like to mention, but I'd like to do it not as part of the recorded meeting. Is that
Yeah.
possible? It isn't something coming before us, I can say that much, but I'd just like to alert my preservation friends about something.
Okay. So we could adjourn and then stop the recording.
Oh, Madam Chair, there is one other thing that I want to talk about. We talked about a retreat. And I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
wondering if, are there any dates that people have available? I would say Saturday or Sunday, if people could just shoot an email to everyone, or maybe someone could do a doodle poll, and see what, when people are available.
All right, and Ed would be there too?
Yes.
So maybe we should go to him first and see what weekends that he would be willing to do that.
Okay. Well, maybe what
Yeah.
I'll do is I'll send out a doodle pool and he can tell us what's good for him. So everyone has a chance to put their dates in.
Okay,
We might have to stretch it through a couple months because people might be busy.
yeah, definitely.
Do it before August comes.
Yeah.
I'm still holding
Definitely.
out that we do this down in the DR at Eldrick's
Yeah.
place down there.
Yeah.
Good.
Second.
Actually, yeah, Alric, I have a friend going to the DR soon, so I'm gonna
Ooh, good.
direct her. Yeah.
The transformer blew out the day after I left, which is like a $1,500 expenditure. So
Wow.
we'll see. It's so now anyway, of course you're welcome. And there's a little hotel right up the road, so everybody doesn't have to sleep on the floor.
That would be awesome. All right, so do we have a motion to adjourn? Okay,
Move.
and a second? Oh, there's Shirley. All in
Second.
favor, say aye.
Aye, aye.
Okay. Now, all you need to do is stop the recording and then we can hear what Alric has to say.
Okay.
Hold
go
on, I'm
ahead.
gonna see stop recording. Okay. All right, goodbye, everyone.
Bye.